The Mafia boss's paper wife was supposed to stay invisible until the night assassins dragged her from their private island and offered her a choice: betray her husband or die. 3 weeks of a cold contract marriage hadn't prepared Lena Hart for the moment she'd face a rival crime lord's gun bleeding into the ocean while Dominic Vale, the man who claimed their arrangement meant nothing, dove into deadly waters to save her. What started as a transaction to erase debt became something far more dangerous. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story reaches. Rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse like bullets, each drop exploding against the glass in a rhythm that matched Lena Hart's racing heart. She stood in the master bedroom, her reflection fragmented across the rain-streaked panes, and wondered when she had stopped recognizing herself. 22 days ago, she had been a nursing student working double shifts at County General, her hands perpetually stained with antiseptic and her eyes burning from exhaustion. 22 days ago, her biggest worry had been whether her father would survive another round of experimental treatment that insurance refused to cover. 22 days ago, she had been free. Now she was Dominic Vale's wife. The marriage certificate sat in a leather portfolio somewhere in his study, stamped and sealed and utterly binding. Her signature, small, trembling, desperate, next to his bold, confident scrawl. Mrs. Lena Vale. The name tasted like ashes in her mouth. She pressed her fingers against the cold glass, watching the city lights blur through the storm. Somewhere down there in those rain-soaked streets, her sister Maya was safe in a new apartment, free from the loan sharks who had circled their dying father like vultures. Somewhere down there, her father was receiving treatment in a private facility that made County General look like a medieval dungeon. The cost of their salvation? Lena's freedom, her future, her heart. Though Dominic Vale had made it abundantly clear he had no interest in that particular organ. "This is strictly business, Miss Hart." His words from their wedding night still echoed in her mind, cold and precise as a surgeon's scalpel. "You'll live here. You'll appear at my side when required. You'll play the role of my wife in public. Beyond that, your life is your own. We need not pretend this arrangement is anything more than what it is." What it was, apparently, was a solution. Her father's debts, astronomical, crushing, the kind of money that could only be owed to the kind of men who broke kneecaps first and asked questions never, had vanished overnight. Literally. The morning after Lena signed the contract, every penny had been paid. The threatening phone calls stopped. The men who had started showing up at Maya's college campus disappeared. In exchange, Lena had moved into this glass palace in the sky, married a man she'd met exactly twice before their wedding, and learned to navigate a world where servants appeared and disappeared like ghosts, where security cameras watched her every move, and where her husband treated her with the warm familiarity of a business associate he'd rather not acknowledge. The bedroom door opened behind her. She didn't turn. She'd learned to recognize his footsteps, deliberate, confident, the stride of a man who owned everything he surveyed, including, technically, her. "Pack a bag." 2 words, no preamble, no explanation. That was Dominic's way. Lena turned slowly, her arms crossed over the silk robe she'd found in the closet. One of dozens, all in her size, all chosen by someone who'd never asked her opinion. Dominic stood in the doorway, still in his suit despite the late hour, though his tie was loosened and his jacket discarded. He looked like he always did, controlled, untouchable, devastatingly handsome in a way that felt almost weaponized. "Excuse me?" "Pack a bag," he repeated, his dark eyes unreadable. "Enough for 2 weeks, casual clothes, swimwear, nothing too formal. We're leaving in an hour." "Leaving for where?" Something flickered across his face. Impatience, maybe, or amusement. With Dominic, it was impossible to tell. His features were a mask he'd perfected over years of operating in a world where showing emotion could get you killed. "Does it matter?" The dismissiveness in his tone sparked something hot and reckless in Lena's chest. 22 days of being treated like expensive furniture, of tiptoeing around this stranger she'd married, of swallowing every question and complaint and moment of terror, it all crystallized into anger. "Yes," she said, her voice sharper than she'd intended. "It matters. You can't just order me to pack and expect I can. He stepped into the room, closing the distance between them with 3 long strides. Up close, he was even more overwhelming. 6 feet of lean muscle and quiet menace, the kind of presence that made rooms feel smaller. That was the agreement. You go where I go when I require it. I require it now. The agreement didn't include being kept in the dark about Lena. Her name on his lips stopped her cold. He rarely used it, preferring Miss Hart or nothing at all. Pack the bag. 1 hour. Don't make me wait. He turned and left, the door clicking shut behind him with awful finality. Lena stood there, shaking with a mixture of anger and something she didn't want to examine too closely, something that felt dangerously like fear. Not of Dominic, exactly. He'd never threatened her, never raised his voice or his hand, but fear of the situation, of the trap she'd walked into with open eyes, of a future that stretched ahead like a long, dark tunnel with no visible end. She packed the bag. What choice did she have? Exactly 60 minutes later, Lena found herself in the back of Dominic's armored SUV, watching the city disappear in the rain-blurred rear window. 2 other vehicles flanked them. Security, always security, the silent men with guns and earpieces who were as much a part of Dominic's life as breathing. They drove through the storm to a private marina, where a yacht waited. Not a yacht. The yacht. Even Lena, who knew nothing about boats, could see that this was something extraordinary. Sleek white lines stretched for what seemed like a city block, every surface gleaming despite the rain. Lights glowed from dozens of windows, and crew members in crisp uniforms stood at attention as Dominic's convoy approached. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Vale." A silver-haired man with a crisp British accent materialized at Lena's elbow, appearing out of nowhere to take her bag. "Mrs. Vale, I'm Captain Morrison. It's a pleasure to have you with us." "Thank you," Lena managed, still staring up at the massive vessel. Dominic's hand touched the small of her back, the first time he'd voluntarily touched her outside of their brief, perfunctory wedding ceremony. The contact sent electricity racing up her spine, unwelcome and undeniable. "This way." He guided her up the gangplank, his palm warm through the thin fabric of her jacket. The yacht's interior made the penthouse look modest by comparison. Marble floors, original artwork, furniture that probably cost more than her father's entire medical bill. Lena followed Dominic through a maze of corridors, past a formal dining room, a cinema, what looked like a full gym. He stopped at a set of double doors and pushed them open. The master suite was larger than the apartment Lena had shared with Maya and their father. A king-size bed dominated one wall, its linens crisp and white. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the storm-tossed marina. A sitting area, a bar, doors leading to what she assumed was a bathroom. "You'll stay here," Dominic said. Lena's stomach dropped. "With you?" He gave her a look that might have been annoyance. "The yacht has 12 guest suites. You'll have your privacy, if that's what concerns you." He gestured to a door she hadn't noticed. "Connecting suite. Your things will be brought there shortly." Relief and something disturbingly like disappointment warred in her chest. "Where are we going?" "Away." "That's not an answer. It's the only one you need." He moved to the bar, poured himself 2 fingers of scotch. Didn't offer her any. "We'll be at sea for approximately 36 hours. There's a full staff aboard. Anything you need, ask for it. Stay out of the restricted areas. The crew will inform you which those are." "Dominic, get some rest, Lena. We cast off in 20 minutes." He left through the connecting door, closing it behind him with a soft click that somehow sounded like a cell door locking. Lena sank onto the edge of the massive bed, her reflection staring back at her from a dozen mirrored surfaces. The yacht's engines rumbled to life somewhere deep in the vessel's belly, a vibration she could feel in her bones. She should have demanded answers. Should have refused to come. Should have. But that was the problem, wasn't it? Should have, could have, would have. All past tense, all roads not taken. The choice had been made 3 weeks ago when she'd signed that contract, trading her future for her family's survival. This was just the price coming due. Lena didn't sleep. How could she, on a yacht cutting through storm-dark waters toward an unknown destination, married to a stranger who collected her like art? Beautiful, expensive, untouchable. She spent the night curled in a leather chair by the windows, watching lightning fork across the horizon, trying not to think about the fact that she was trapped. That Dominic Vale could take her anywhere, do anything, and she'd signed away her right to protest. But he won't, a small voice whispered in the back of her mind. He hasn't. In 3 weeks of marriage, he's been cold, distant, indifferent, but never cruel, never violent. That should have been comforting. Somehow, it wasn't. Dawn broke gray and sullen across an empty ocean. The storm had passed during the night, leaving behind choppy seas and a sky the color of old bruises. Lena finally showered and changed, emerging from her suite to find the yacht's corridors bustling with activity. A young woman in the crew's crisp uniform spotted her immediately. "Mrs. Vale, good morning. I'm Sarah, your personal attendant during the voyage. Would you like breakfast?" Yes, thank you." "Wonderful. The main deck dining area or your suite?" "The deck, please." Sarah's smile brightened. "Excellent choice. The view is spectacular. This way." She led Lena up 2 flights of stairs to an open-air dining area that made Lena's breath catch. White cushioned furniture, a table set for 2, and beyond it, nothing but ocean. Endless blue-green water stretching to every horizon, the yacht cutting through it like a knife through silk. Dominic was already there. He sat at the table with a tablet in one hand and coffee in the other, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread for How Billionaire Crime Lords Relax. White linen shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, dark sunglasses hiding his eyes. He glanced up as Lena approached, his expression unreadable. "You're awake." "I didn't sleep." "Neither did I." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." The chef prepared several options. Lena sat, hyper-aware of the way the morning sun caught in Dominic's dark hair, the sharp line of his jaw, the casual power in the way he moved. A crew member appeared instantly, pouring her coffee, offering fresh fruit and pastries and eggs Benedict that looked like something from a cooking show. She picked at the food, her appetite non-existent, while Dominic returned his attention to his tablet. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the cry of gulls and the rhythmic sound of the yacht cutting through water. Finally, Lena couldn't stand it anymore. "Are you going to tell me where we're going?" Dominic lowered his tablet slowly. Behind his sunglasses, she couldn't read his expression, but something in the set of his shoulders suggested he was choosing his words carefully. "Somewhere safe." Safe from what? "From everyone who wants to use you to get to me." The bluntness of it hit Lena like cold water. "What?" Dominic removed his sunglasses, folding them precisely and setting them on the table. Without the barrier, his eyes were intense, dark, focused on her with an attention that made her skin prickle. "You're my wife," he said, as if explaining something to a child. "That makes you a target. Every rival, every enemy, every ambitious fool looking to make a name for themselves, they'll all see you as my weakness." "But we're not," Lena struggled for words. "This isn't real. Everyone knows it's just a business arrangement." "Does everyone know that?" Dominic leaned forward slightly, his gaze never leaving hers. "Because from where I'm sitting, we had a wedding, signed documents. You live in my home, wear my ring, carry my name. That looks remarkably real to the people who want to hurt me." Lena glanced down at the platinum band on her finger, so simple and elegant she sometimes forgot it was there. "Then why did you marry me?" "If it makes me a target, because I needed a wife." He said it flatly, without emotion. "For reasons that don't concern you. And you needed money. We both got what we required. And now? Now we disappear for a while. Let things settle. Make it clear that Mrs. Dominic Vale is under my protection." His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Consider it a honeymoon." The word hung in the air between them, absurd and terrible. "Honeymoons are for people who are actually married," Lena said quietly. "We are actually married." "You know what I mean." Something flickered in Dominic's eyes, there and gone so fast she almost missed it. He picked up his coffee, took a slow sip. "What you mean is that honeymoons are for people in love. People who chose each other. People who want to be together." "Yes." "Then you're right. This isn't a honeymoon." He set down his cup with deliberate care. "It's a strategic withdrawal to protect an asset I've invested considerably in. Don't romanticize it, Lena. That's not what this is." The words should have hurt. They were meant to hurt, she realized, meant to draw a line, establish distance, remind her of exactly what she was to him: an investment, an asset, a solution to a problem. But Lena had spent 3 weeks learning to read the subtle tells Dominic thought he hid so well. The tightness around his eyes when he lied, the way his jaw clenched when something bothered him, the tiny pause before he said things designed to push her away. He was lying, not about everything. They weren't in love, weren't a real couple. But the rest of it, the cold indifference, the pure business transaction, that was performance. She just didn't know why yet. How long? She asked, instead of challenging him. 2 weeks on the island, then we'll reassess. What island? Mine. Of course he owned an island. Of course he did. Dominic stood, collecting his tablet and sunglasses. We arrive tomorrow evening. Until then, enjoy the yacht. The staff will accommodate any request. He paused, looking down at her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. This doesn't have to be unpleasant, Lena. You might even enjoy it. He left before she could respond. Lena sat alone on the deck, surrounded by endless ocean, and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. 3 weeks ago, she'd signed a contract to save her family, thinking she understood the price. Now she was starting to realize she'd had no idea at all. The day passed in strange, dreamlike quality. Lena explored the yacht, discovering amenities that seemed absurd for a vessel: a spa, a library stocked with first editions, a wine cellar that could rival any restaurant. The crew was unfailingly polite, appearing whenever she needed something and vanishing the moment they weren't required. She saw Dominic only in passing, a glimpse of him on the phone in what looked like a serious conversation, another time emerging from a room filled with computer screens and security monitors. Each time he acknowledged her with a small nod and nothing more. By evening, Lena found herself back on the main deck, watching the sunset in a spectacular display of orange and gold. The storm had blown out completely, leaving behind perfect weather and seas so calm they barely rippled. Beautiful, isn't it? She jumped, not having heard Dominic approach. He stood beside her at the railing, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive and distinctly him. Yes, she managed. I bought this yacht for sunsets like this. He gazed out at the horizon, his profile sharp against the golden light. Sometimes I forget why. The work consumes everything. The planning, the strategy, the constant vigilance. You forget there are things worth seeing that have nothing to do with power or money. It was the most personal thing he'd ever said to her. Lena held her breath, afraid to break whatever spell had loosened his tongue. Why do you do it then? She asked quietly. If it consumes everything? Dominic was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because the alternative is worse. What alternative? Being powerless. He turned to look at her, and in his eyes she saw something she'd never noticed before. Shadows, depths, old wounds that had never quite healed. Watching people you care about suffer because you can't protect them, being at the mercy of others, that kind of helplessness. He shook his head. I'll never feel that way again. Understanding crashed over Lena like a wave. Someone hurt you. Before. Before I was powerful enough to stop them, yes. His mouth curved into a bitter smile. We all have our reasons for the choices we make, Lena. Mine just happened to involve ensuring I'm never weak again. And me? The question escaped before she could stop it. What am I in all of this? Really? Dominic studied her face, his gaze intense and searching. For a moment she thought he might tell her the truth, whatever that was. But then his mask slipped back into place, smooth and impenetrable. You're my wife, he said. That's all you need to be. He left her standing at the railing, alone with the sunset and the growing certainty that Dominic Vale was a far more complicated man than he wanted anyone to know, including, perhaps, himself. The second day at sea brought them into warmer waters. Lena woke to brilliant sunshine streaming through her windows and the yacht cutting through seas so blue they looked artificial. She dressed in one of the swimsuits that had appeared in her suite, designer, perfectly fitted, like everything else Dominic provided, and ventured onto the deck. The yacht had transformed. The crew had lowered platforms at water level, creating intimate areas for swimming or sunbathing. Music drifted from hidden speakers, something jazzy and smooth. It felt like a vacation, which made Lena's skin crawl because she knew it wasn't. This was exile dressed up as luxury. She spent the morning reading, trying to lose herself in a novel from the yacht's library. But her attention kept drifting to Dominic, who'd claimed a chair on the opposite side of the deck. He was shirtless, which was unfair. That was the word that came to mind. Unfair that a man so cold and controlled should have a body that looked carved from marble, all lean muscle and golden skin. Unfair that she noticed. Unfair that her traitorous heart picked up speed every time he shifted or stood or dove off the platform into the crystal water. "Mrs. Vale?" Sarah appeared at her elbow. "Lunch is being served in the main salon. Will you be joining Mr. Vale?" Lena glanced over at Dominic, who was pulling himself out of the water, muscles flexing in ways that definitely should not be legal. "Yes, thank you." The main salon was cooler, air-conditioned relief from the tropical heat. Lunch was already laid out, a spread of fresh seafood, salads, chilled wine. Dominic arrived moments later, having thrown on a shirt but leaving it unbuttoned. They ate in silence for several minutes before Dominic spoke. "You should put on sunscreen." Lena blinked. "What?" "Your shoulders." He gestured with his fork. "You're burning. There's sunscreen in your sweet bathroom, but I can have Sarah bring you some if I'm fine." "You're not." He set down his fork with a sigh. "Lena, this is exactly the kind of stubborn, wait here." He disappeared before she could protest, returning moments later with a bottle of high SPF sunscreen. He set it on the table between them. "Put it on." "I said I'm fine." "And I said you're burning." "Don't be stupid about this." Something in Lena snapped. Maybe it was the heat, or the strange intimacy of being trapped on a yacht with a man who blew hot and cold like a broken thermostat, or the sheer accumulated stress of 3 weeks of walking on eggshells. Whatever it was, it came out as anger. "Stupid?" She stood abruptly, her chair scraping back. "You dragged me onto a yacht, refused to tell me where we're going or why, treat me like expensive furniture one moment and like you actually care the next, and I'm being stupid about sunscreen?" Dominic stood too, his jaw tight. "I'm trying to make sure you don't spend the next week in pain because you're too proud to. I don't need you to take care of me." "Clearly you do, since you can't even—" "I didn't ask for any of this." The words exploded out of her, louder than she intended. "I didn't ask to be your wife or your asset or your problem to solve. I just wanted to save my family, and now I'm trapped on a boat in the middle of the ocean with a man who won't even tell me where." Dominic moved. 1 second he was on the opposite side of the table, the next he was in front of her, his hands gripping her shoulders. Not hard, but firm enough to stop her building tirade. "You want to know where we're going?" His voice was low, controlled, but she could hear the anger simmering beneath it. "Fine. We're going to my private island. It's 30 miles off the coast of a country whose name you wouldn't recognize. There are no other islands within 100 miles. It has a landing strip, a full security team, and enough supplies to survive for months without outside contact. That's where we're going." "Why?" Lena met his gaze, refusing to be intimidated. "Why hide me there?" "Because 3 days ago, one of my business associates was killed by a rival organization." His grip on her shoulders tightened fractionally. "They didn't just kill him. They killed his wife, his children, his parents, sent a message that anyone connected to him was fair game." The anger drained out of Lena in a rush, replaced by ice-cold fear. "Dominic, I won't let that happen to you." His eyes burned into hers, intense and absolute. "I won't let anyone use you to hurt me. So yes, you're coming to my island. Yes, you'll stay there as long as necessary. And no, you don't get a vote, because keeping you alive is more important than your feelings about being protected." He released her and stepped back, his chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. "Now put on the damn sunscreen." He left. Lena sank back into her chair, her hands shaking. The bottle of sunscreen sat on the table, innocent and ordinary and somehow terrifying in what it represented. Dominic Vale wasn't just hiding her, he was protecting her from a world violent enough to murder entire families. And somewhere in the last 3 weeks, she'd become important enough to him that he'd exile them both to ensure her safety. Lena picked up the sunscreen with trembling fingers and began applying it to her shoulders, trying not to think about what that might mean. Papa. They reached the island as the sun set on the second day. Lena stood at the railing, watching it emerge from the ocean like something from a fantasy. Volcanic peaks wreathed in jungle, white sand beaches, a sprawling estate perched on cliffs that glowed golden in the fading light. Beautiful and isolated and utterly remote. A fortress disguised as paradise. The yacht anchored in a natural harbor. Smaller boats ferried them to shore, where a team of staff waited. More security, more servants, more of the invisible infrastructure that supported Dominic's life. They were whisked up winding roads to the estate, which was somehow even more impressive than the yacht. Modern architecture blended seamlessly with the landscape. Walls of glass and stone, infinity pools that seemed to pour into the ocean, gardens that looked like they'd been growing for centuries. Every detail was perfect, every sightline considered, every luxury anticipated. Lena's suite was in the east wing, her own space, separate from Dominic's, with a private terrace and a view that would have been breathtaking if she could focus on anything except the cage, however beautiful, closing around her. "Dinner in an hour," Dominic said, appearing in her doorway. He'd changed into casual clothes, linen pants, and a loose shirt that made him look almost approachable. "Unless you'd prefer to eat alone?" "No." The word came out too quickly, betraying how much she didn't want to be alone in this beautiful prison. "I'll be there." Something softened in his expression. "The island isn't a cage, Lena. You're free to go anywhere you want here. Swim, explore, use the facilities, just stay within the security perimeter." "How will I know where that is?" "If you can see it, you can go there." He leaned against the doorframe, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. "This is a safe place. Maybe the only truly safe place I have. Try to enjoy it." "Dominic," she turned to face him fully, needing him to understand. "I'm not ungrateful. I know you're trying to protect me. But I'm not used to any of this. The luxury, the guards, being kept in the dark about everything. Where I come from, you fight your own battles. You don't hide behind what? Money? Power? Security?" His expression hardened again, the brief softness vanishing. "Where you come from, Lena, your father ended up owing debts he couldn't pay to people who would have killed him. And you, without a second thought. Where you come from didn't keep you safe." The truth of it stung. "That's not fair." "It's completely fair." He pushed off the doorframe, closing the distance between them. "You want to fight your own battles? Fine. But you're in my world now, and here, battles are fought with resources you don't have and violence you can't imagine. So forgive me if I choose to use every advantage I possess to keep you alive." "Why?" The question burst out of her, raw and honest. "Why do you care so much? We barely know each other. This marriage is just what?" His voice dropped, dangerous and soft. "Just a piece of paper? Just a transaction. Is that what you think this is? Isn't it? That's what you said. The first night you made it very clear." "I lied." The words hung between them, impossible and earth-shaking. Lena stared at him. "What?" Dominic's jaw worked, like he was fighting with himself over what to say next. Finally, "I noticed you 3 months before I needed a wife. You were at County General, visiting your father. You brought him flowers, cheap ones from a grocery store because that's all you could afford. And you sat with him for hours, holding his hand, telling him stories to make him laugh, even though he was too weak to respond." Lena's breath caught. "You were there." "I was there because one of my men was in the trauma unit. Gunshot wound. I saw you in the waiting room, and He shook his head, a bitter smile crossing his face. "I couldn't look away. The way you cared for him, the gentle strength in you, it was the most beautiful thing I'd seen in years." "Dominic." "So no, Lena, this marriage isn't just a transaction. It was never just a transaction, not for me." His eyes met hers, dark and intense, and full of things that terrified her. "I married you because I wanted you. I told myself it was business because wanting something makes you vulnerable, and I couldn't afford to be vulnerable. But then you moved into my penthouse, and you were there every morning, and I realized I'd miscalculated badly." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I thought I could keep you at a distance." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I was wrong." His thumb traced her cheekbone, the touch feather-light and electrifying. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs, her breath coming short. Every instinct screamed at her to step back, to maintain the safe distance between them. She didn't move. "This is a mistake," she whispered. "Probably." His other hand came up to cup her face, his touch reverent and devastating. "But I'm done pretending I don't want you. Dominic, we can't. We're not." He kissed her. Not rough, not demanding, soft, questioning, giving her every opportunity to pull away. His lips moved against hers with a gentleness that shattered something in Lena's chest, all the carefully built walls she'd erected crumbling under the tender assault. She should stop this, should push him away, remind him they were strangers, remember all the very good reasons this was a terrible idea. Instead, she kissed him back. Lena's fingers tangled in Dominic's hair, pulling him closer even as her mind screamed that this was madness. His hand slid from her face to her waist, anchoring her against him with a possessiveness that should have terrified her but instead sent heat racing through her veins. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the moment you walked down the aisle," he murmured. Lena's laugh came out shaky. "You looked like you were at a business meeting." "I'm very good at hiding what I feel." His thumb traced circles on her hip, the touch burning through the thin fabric of her dress. "I've had a lot of practice." "Why?" She pulled back enough to see his face. "Why hide it from me?" "Because wanting you makes you dangerous." His jaw tightened. "The moment anyone in my world realizes you're more than a convenient arrangement, you become the perfect target. I thought if I kept my distance, if I made it clear this was purely transactional, I could protect you. But you brought me here anyway." Because distance wasn't working. His hand slid up her sides, stopping just below her ribs. "Every morning I'd see you at breakfast, reading or lost in thought, and I'd have to remind myself not to touch you, not to ask what you were thinking, not to tell you that you were the most beautiful thing in my home and I couldn't stop watching you." Lena's heart stuttered. "Dominic!" "I know." He stepped back, putting space between them that felt like miles. "This complicates everything. But I'm tired of pretending I don't want you in my bed, in my life, in every way that matters." The raw honesty in his voice stripped away Lena's ability to think clearly. 3 weeks of cold distance and now this, confession and desire, and a vulnerability she hadn't known he possessed. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Then don't say anything." He moved to the door, pausing with his hand on the frame. "Dinner in 30 minutes. And Lena?" His eyes found hers dark and heated. "That kiss changes nothing about keeping you safe. If anything, it makes me more determined. You understand?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. He left, and Lena collapsed onto the bed, her fingers touching her lips where she could still feel the pressure of his mouth. Everything had shifted in the space of a single kiss, the careful boundaries between them dissolving like sugar in water. She should be afraid, should be planning how to rebuild those walls, restore the safe distance. Instead, all she could think about was the look in Dominic's eyes when he'd said he wanted her, like she was something precious, something worth protecting at any cost. Dinner was torture. They ate on the main terrace, the table set with crystal and candlelight, the ocean a dark presence beyond the gardens. The food was exquisite. Fresh-caught fish, tropical fruit, wine that probably cost more than Lena's old monthly rent. But she barely tasted any of it, too aware of Dominic across from her, the memory of his kiss burning between them like a living thing. "Tell me about your sister," Dominic said, breaking the charged silence. Lena blinked. "Maya? You've never talked about her, only that she's in school." "She's—" Lena paused, surprised by the question. Dominic had never asked her anything personal before. "She's studying architecture, 21, brilliant, stubborn as hell. She wanted to drop out to help with Dad's medical bills, but I wouldn't let her. Hence the contract with me." "Hence the contract," Lena agreed. "She doesn't know the details. Just that someone helped us and she needs to focus on finishing her degree." Dominic swirled his wine, studying her. "You protected her." "She's my little sister. That's what you do." "Is it?" Something shadowed his expression. "Not everyone would sacrifice their own future for family." "You would." Lena said it with certainty. "Whatever made you build all this power, all this protection, Someone hurt someone you cared about, and you made sure it could never happen again. His fingers tightened on his glass. Perceptive. Am I wrong? No. He set down the wine, his gaze distant. I had a sister once, Elena. She was younger, like Maya, smart, kind. Everything good in a world that didn't deserve her. The past tense sent ice through Lena's veins. What happened? I was 19, working for a man who ran protection rackets in the old neighborhood. Thought I was tough. Thought I understood how things worked. His voice went flat, emotionless. I was an idiot. I skimmed some money, nothing major, but his enforcer found out. He couldn't touch me directly, I was useful. So he went after Elena instead. Dominic. She was 16. He looked at Lena then, and the pain in his eyes was devastating. They took her to send me a message. By the time I found her, she was already gone. They left her in an alley like garbage. Lena's hand moved without conscious thought, reaching across the table to cover his. I'm so sorry. I killed them all. He said it calmly, like discussing the weather. The enforcer, his crew, the man who gave the order. Then I took over his territory, built it into something bigger, kept building until no one would ever dare touch someone I cared about again. That's why you have all this. Understanding crashed over her. The power, the security, the island, it's all a fortress. Yes. His hand turned under hers, their fingers intertwining. And now you're inside that fortress, which means you're safe, but it also means you're trapped with a man who's killed for less than what was done to her. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to be honest. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. I'm not a good man, Lena. I've done things that would horrify you, built an empire on violence and fear and ruthless calculation. The only reason I'm telling you this is so you understand. The protection I'm offering comes with strings. Once you're mine, you're mine. I don't share, don't compromise, don't let go. I'm already yours, Lena said quietly. We're married, remember? That's a piece of paper. I'm talking about something more. His eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. I'm talking about you choosing this. Choosing me, knowing exactly what I am. Lena's heart hammered. And if I don't choose you, then I'll still keep you safe. Still protect you until the threat passes. Still honor our contract. He released her hand, sitting back. But I won't touch you again. Won't kiss you. Won't pretend this is anything more than a business arrangement. The choice is yours. The weight of it settled over her, this decision that could reshape her entire future. She could retreat into safety, maintain the distance, live in Dominic's world without being part of it. Or she could step forward into the unknown, into the arms of a man who'd built an empire on blood and somehow still looked at her like she was something pure. I need time, she said finally. To think. Dominic nodded, his expression unreadable again, the mask sliding back into place. Take all the time you need. We have 2 weeks here. But as Lena lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling while ocean waves crashed in the distance, she knew time wouldn't change the fundamental truth. She wanted him. Despite everything, despite the danger and the violence and the impossibility of it all, she wanted Dominic Vale with an intensity that terrified her. The question was whether she was brave enough to reach for what she wanted. The days on the island developed their own rhythm. Mornings, Lena would wake to sunshine streaming through her windows and the smell of fresh coffee drifting from the terrace. She'd find Dominic already awake, usually on his laptop or phone, managing his empire from paradise. He'd look up when she appeared and something would flash in his eyes, heat, longing, careful restraint. They'd have breakfast together, the conversation carefully neutral, the weather, the island, books from the extensive library. Never anything too personal, never anything that might shatter the fragile equilibrium they'd established. Then Dominic would disappear into his office for hours, and Lena would explore. The island was breathtaking. She discovered hidden beaches where sea turtles nested, jungle paths that led to waterfalls, gardens where exotic flowers bloomed in impossible colors. The staff moved like ghosts, always present when needed, but otherwise invisible. Security patrolled the perimeter in discreet vehicles, reminders that this paradise was also a fortress. Afternoons, she'd swim in the infinity pool or read on the terrace, hyper-aware of Dominic working in his office with its glass walls that let her see him but not reach him. Sometimes she'd catch him watching her, his gaze heated and hungry, before he'd force his attention back to his work. The tension between them built like a gathering storm. On the fourth day, Lena found him in the estate's gym, working out with an intensity that spoke of frustration. She stopped in the doorway, transfixed by the sight of him, shirtless, muscles flexing as he pounded a heavy bag with wrapped fists. He noticed her in the mirror and stopped, breathing hard. "Sorry," Lena said quickly. "I didn't mean to interrupt." "You're not." He grabbed a towel, wiping sweat from his face. "Did you need something?" "You," she thought, but didn't say. "I was going to swim. Want to join me?" The invitation hung between them, innocent on the surface, but weighted with everything they weren't saying. "Give me 10 minutes, Dominic said. They swam in the infinity pool as the sun climbed higher, the water cool and perfect. Lena floated on her back, staring up at the cloudless sky, acutely aware of Dominic cutting through the water nearby. When she finally stood, she found him at the pool's edge, arms crossed on the stone, watching her. "What?" she asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Nothing. Just—" He shook his head. "You look happy. I wasn't sure you could be here." "It's beautiful here. How could I not be happy?" "Because you're a prisoner, however luxurious the cage." His jaw tightened. "I know what I've taken from you, Lena. Your freedom, your choices, your normal life. Sometimes I think I'm no better than the men your father owed money to." Lena swam closer, stopping just out of reach. "Those men would have killed us. You saved us. For a price. Everything has a price." She studied his face, the hard lines that softened when he looked at her. "You think I don't understand that? I'm not a child, Dominic. I knew what I was agreeing to." "Did you?" He pushed off from the wall, closing the distance between them in one smooth motion. "Because I'm not sure I did. I thought I could keep this clinical, controlled. Turns out I'm not as disciplined as I believed." His hands found her waist under the water, pulling her closer. Lena's breath caught, her palms flattening against his chest. This close, she could see water droplets caught in his eyelashes, the slight darkening of his eyes as his gaze dropped to her mouth. "Dominic, tell me to stop." His voice was rough. "Tell me you don't want this, and I'll let go right now." She should push him away, maintain the boundaries, protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak of falling for a man whose world was built on violence. "I can't," she whispered. He kissed her like a drowning man finding air, one hand tangling in her wet hair while the other pressed her against him. Lena surrendered to it, to him, her arms wrapping around his neck as he lifted her effortlessly. Her legs circled his waist, and the feeling of his body against hers sent electricity racing along every nerve. This was different from their first kiss, hungrier, more desperate, weeks of restraint shattering under the combined weight of want and proximity and the sheer impossibility of denying this any longer. When they finally broke apart, Dominic pressed his forehead to hers, both of them breathing hard. "Come to dinner with me tonight," he said. "Not on the terrace. Somewhere else." "Where?" "Let me surprise you." That evening, Lena found a dress laid out in her suite, midnight blue silk that hugged her curves and fell to mid-thigh. A note in Dominic's precise handwriting. "Wear this. 8 o'clock. She almost didn't, almost chose something else out of sheer stubbornness, a reminder that he didn't control everything. But curiosity won. At 8 precisely, she emerged from her suite to find Dominic waiting, devastating in a black suit that made him look like sin personified. His eyes swept over her, heating with approval that made her skin flush. "You're beautiful," he said simply. "You're not so bad yourself." His smile was quick and genuine, transforming his usually severe features into something almost boyish. "Come on." He led her through the estate and down a path she hadn't explored before, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows. The path wound through the jungle, emerging finally at a small beach she didn't know existed. And there, set up on the sand, was a table for two, covered in white linens and surrounded by candles that flickered in the ocean breeze. Lena stopped, her breath catching. "When did you—" "This afternoon, while you were reading." He guided her to the table, pulling out her chair. "I wanted to do this right. Give you something that wasn't about contracts or obligations, just us." The dinner was perfect. Fresh seafood grilled to perfection, wine that tasted like sunshine, conversation that flowed easier than it ever had before. Dominic told her about growing up in the city, about the moment he'd decided to build something bigger than revenge, about the strange loneliness of having everything except someone to share it with. Lena found herself opening up in return, talking about her nursing school dreams she'd had to abandon, about Maya's ridiculous sense of humor, about the way her father used to take them to the park every Sunday before he got sick. "Do you miss it?" Dominic asked as they finished dessert. "The normal life you had before?" "Sometimes." Lena watched the waves crash in the darkness. "But it wasn't as normal as you might think. We were always struggling, always one crisis away from disaster. At least now Maya's safe. Dad's getting treatment. That's worth more than normalcy." "And you?" He reached across the table, taking her hand. "What's it worth to you?" She met his eyes, seeing the question beneath the question. "I'm still figuring that out." "Fair enough." He stood, still holding her hand. "Dance with me?" "There's no music." "There's always music." He pulled out his phone and soft jazz began playing from hidden speakers. "Come here." Lena let him draw her into his arms, their bodies swaying together on the sand. His hand splayed across her lower back, holding her close, while hers rested on his shoulder. This close, she could feel his heartbeat, steady and strong against her chest. "I haven't danced since high school prom," she admitted. "Neither have I." His lips brushed her temple. "I'm probably terrible at it." "You're doing fine." They moved together in the candlelight, the ocean providing its own rhythm beneath the jazz. Lena let herself relax into him, into this moment that felt stolen from some other life where she hadn't married a mafia boss, where this was just a regular date with a man she was falling for, except she was falling for him. The realization hit her with perfect clarity. Somewhere between the cold penthouse and this perfect beach, between his gruff protectiveness and his rare smiles, she'd started falling for Dominic Vale. "You're thinking too loud," he murmured against her hair. "Sorry." "Don't be. Just stay here with me, in this moment." She did, letting everything else fall away until there was only the music and the waves and the warmth of Dominic's arms around her. When the song ended, he didn't let go. Instead, he cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones with devastating gentleness. "I know I said you could have time to decide," he said quietly, "but I need you to know. I'm already decided. I want this to be real, Lena. I want you, not as part of some contract, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it anymore." "Dominic, you don't have to say anything yet. Just think about it." He pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "I can wait. I've gotten good at waiting for things that matter." He walked her back to her suite, kissed her goodnight with a restraint that must have cost him, and left her standing in her doorway, heart racing and mind spinning. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The dinner, the dancing, the look in Dominic's eyes when he'd said he wanted her. She'd signed a contract to save her family, expecting a cold business arrangement with a stranger. Instead, she'd found a man who watched sunsets to remember beauty existed, who built empires to protect the people he loved, who kissed her like she was something precious he was afraid of breaking. And somewhere in the last week, the island had stopped feeling like a prison. It had started feeling like home. The next morning, Lena found Dominic on his private terrace, reviewing documents. She'd rehearsed what to say a dozen times during her sleepless night, but the words died when he looked up and smiled. "Morning, coffee. Dominic, I need to tell you something." His smile faded, replaced by careful neutrality. "All right." Lena took a breath, gathering her courage. "Last night, you said you wanted this to be real, that you wanted me." "Yes. I want that too." The words came out in a rush. "I'm terrified, and this is probably insane, and I don't know how to be with someone like you, but I want to try. If you're willing to be patient with me." Dominic set down his coffee very carefully, like he was afraid sudden movement might shatter the moment. "Patient I can do. I mean really patient. I don't know your world, don't understand half of what you do. And I need—" She struggled for words. "I need you to keep talking to me, not shutting me out when things get difficult. Can you do that?" "I can try." He stood, closing the distance between them. I'm not good at letting people in, Lena. You'll have to be patient with me, too. Deal. His hands framed her face, his touch reverent. You're sure about this? No, she admitted, but I'm sure I want to find out. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, Lena was smiling. So what happens now? She asked. Now? Dominic's smile turned wicked. Now I take you on a proper tour of the island, show you the places I've never shown anyone else. There are places you haven't shown me? Dozens. I've been saving them. For what? For when you decided you wanted to stay. His hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. Come on, let me show you my world. The next week passed in a blur of discovery. Dominic took her to hidden caves where phosphorescent plankton lit up the water like stars, taught her to sail the small catamaran kept at the private dock, showed her the observatory he'd built on the island's highest peak, where they watched meteor showers streak across an unpolluted sky. And slowly, carefully, he led her into the parts of his life he'd kept walled off. They'd lie in bed at night, her room or his, the separate suites abandoned as unnecessary, and he'd tell her stories about building his empire, about the men he'd defeated, about the careful balance between power and vulnerability he'd maintained for years. I thought if I was strong enough, brutal enough, I could protect everyone, he said one night, his fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. Turns out strength isn't enough. Sometimes you need someone to fight for, not just against. Is that what I am? Lena asked. Someone to fight for? You're everything I fight for. He kissed the curve of her neck. You're the reason all of this matters. Lena turned in his arms, studying his face in the moonlight streaming through the windows. What happens when we leave the island? We go back to the city, resume our lives. And this? She gestured between them. What is this when we're back there? What do you want it to be? I want it to be real, not a secret we hide. Even knowing what that means? His expression grew serious. Every enemy I have will target you. Every rival will see you as a weakness. Your life will never be simple or safe again. It wasn't safe before I met you, Lena pointed out. At least now I have someone watching my back. Always. He pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her like a shield. I'll always watch your back. They made love as the moon set, slow and tender and perfect. And afterward, wrapped in each other's arms, Lena felt something shift inside her chest, the last of her resistance crumbling, the final walls coming down. She was in love with Dominic Vale. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. On their 11th day on the island, reality intruded. Lena woke to find Dominic's side of the bed empty, which was unusual. She found him in his office, on the phone, his expression harder than she'd seen it in days. Handle it, he said curtly, and hung up. What's wrong? Lena asked from the doorway. He looked up, and for a moment his mask slipped. She saw worry, anger, fear. Then it smoothed over, leaving only careful control. Nothing you need to worry about. Dominic, I said it's handled. His tone was sharp, dismissive, exactly how he'd sounded in their first weeks of marriage. Lena flinched. Don't do that. Don't shut me out. You promised. I promised to try. He stood, moving to the window. But some things you're better off not knowing. That's not your decision to make. Yes, it is. He turned, and his eyes were cold. This is my world, Lena. I let you in as far as I can, but there are parts you don't get to see. Parts that are too dangerous, too ugly. Accept that, or what? Anger flared hot in her chest. Or you'll send me back to my suite? Treat me like a stranger again? We're past that, Dominic. You don't get to kiss me one night and ice me out the next just because something scared you. This isn't about being scared, isn't it? She crossed the room, refusing to let him retreat. Someone called with bad news, and your first instinct is to push me away, to protect me by shutting me out. But that's not protection. That's control. His jaw tightened. You have no idea what you're talking about. Then explain it to me. Tell me what's happening instead of treating me like I'm too fragile to handle the truth. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then, finally, his shoulders dropped. Viktor Dragov. The name meant nothing to Lena. Who? A rival. Someone I've been in conflict with for years. Dominic's hand ran through his hair, a rare gesture of agitation. He's made it clear he knows about you, about us. The call was from my head of security. There have been inquiries. People asking questions about my wife, where she is, what she means to me. Cold fear trickled down Lena's spine. What does that mean? It means he sees you as a weakness, something he can exploit. Dominic moved closer, his hands gripping her shoulders. Which is exactly why I didn't want to tell you. Because now you're afraid, and there's nothing you can do except trust that I'll handle it. I do trust you. Lena covered his hands with hers. But I can't be kept in the dark, Dominic. If someone's targeting me, I deserve to know. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping tight around her. You're right, you do. I hate that my world touches you like this. Your world is my world now. She pulled back enough to see his face. For better or worse, remember? That's what marriage means. Ours was supposed to be different. It is different. Because we chose it. She touched his cheek, feeling the tension in his jaw. So what do we do about Viktor Dragov? We stay here until my people neutralize the threat. And when we go back prepared. His eyes hardened. He wants to use you against me? Fine. Let him try. He'll learn very quickly why that's a fatal mistake. The rest of the day, Dominic was on and off the phone, his expression growing grimmer with each call. Lena watched him pace his office, barking orders in a language she didn't understand. Every inch the ruthless crime boss she'd married. It should have scared her. Instead, she felt oddly calm. This was who Dominic was. Powerful, dangerous, willing to burn the world down to protect what was his. And she was his now, in ways that went far beyond a marriage contract. That night, she found him on the beach where they'd had their first dinner, staring out at the dark ocean. Can't sleep? She asked, settling beside him in the sand. Too much to think about. Want to share? He was quiet for a long moment, then, I'm thinking about how much I have to lose now. Before you, it was just me. If something went wrong, if I made a mistake, I was the only one who paid the price. But now, his hand found hers in the darkness. Now I have something precious. Someone who could be hurt because of me. It changes everything. Good, Lena said firmly. He looked at her, surprised. Good? Having something to lose makes you careful, makes you human. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You've spent years building walls to protect yourself from feeling anything. Maybe it's time to let yourself be vulnerable. Vulnerability gets you killed in my world. Or it makes you stronger. She laced their fingers together. You told me about your sister, about how losing her made you build all this power. But power for its own sake is hollow, Dominic. Power to protect someone you love? That's worth everything. He turned to her, his eyes intense even in the darkness. I love you. The words hung in the air between them, raw and unexpected and perfect. Say that again, Lena whispered. I love you. His hand cupped her face. I've probably loved you since I saw you in that hospital, holding your father's hand. I just didn't know it yet. Lena's eyes burned with sudden tears. I love you too. I think I have for a while now. I was just too scared to admit it. He kissed her then, soft and deep, and full of everything they'd been dancing around for weeks. When they finally broke apart, he stood, pulling her up with him. Come back to the house with me, he said. Why? His smile was pure heat. Because I want to make love to my wife, my real wife, not a contract or an arrangement, you. Lena let him lead her back through the moonlit gardens, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. Tomorrow, they might have to face Viktor Dragov and whatever threat he represented. Tomorrow, reality would intrude again. But tonight, they had this. And for now, that was everything. They didn't make it to the bedroom. Dominic pulled Lena into his arms the moment they crossed the threshold, kissing her with an urgency that spoke of weeks of restraint finally breaking. They stumbled through the darkened house, hands roaming, clothes disappearing, until they collapsed onto the leather sofa in his study, skin against skin and hearts racing in sync. Afterward, lying tangled together with moonlight streaming through the windows, Lena traced lazy patterns across Dominic's chest. I never thought it could be like this, she murmured. Like what? Safe and dangerous at the same time. She pressed a kiss to his shoulder. You make me feel both. His arms tightened around her. I'll always keep you safe, no matter what it costs. The words should have been comforting. Instead, they sent a shiver down Lena's spine, a premonition she couldn't quite name. The next morning brought chaos. Lena woke alone again, but this time she could hear raised voices from downstairs. She threw on one of Dominic's shirts and hurried down to find him in the main living area, surrounded by his security team. Maps were spread across the coffee table, and everyone looked grim. "What's happening?" she asked. Dominic looked up, his expression hardening when he saw her. "Go back upstairs." "Dominic." "Now, Lena. This doesn't concern you." But Marcus, his head of security, shook his head. "Actually, sir, it does. She should hear this." Dominic's jaw clenched, but he gestured for Lena to come closer. She moved to his side, and his arm automatically went around her waist, protective, possessive. "Tell her," he said curtly. Marcus, a tall man with iron gray hair and the bearing of a soldier, met Lena's eyes. "We intercepted communications from Dragov's organization. They know you're here. More specifically, they know the island's approximate location." Fear clutched at Lena's throat. "How?" "Satellite surveillance, most likely. They've been tracking the yacht's movements." Marcus pointed to the maps. "The good news is the island's defenses are substantial. They can't launch a direct assault without significant resources." "And the bad news?" Lena asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. "The bad news is they don't need to assault the island," Dominic said, his voice tight. "They just need to wait us out. We can't stay here forever, and the moment we leave, we're vulnerable. So what do we do?" "We leave tonight," Marcus said. "Under cover of darkness, take a different route back to the mainland. Mr. Vale's penthouse has better security infrastructure than anywhere else, and we can control the environment there." "No." Dominic's tone was absolute. "We're not running scared back to the city. That's exactly what Dragov wants, to disrupt our lives, make us react on his timeline." "With respect, sir," another security officer interjected, a younger man Lena recognized as James, "staying here makes Mrs. Vale a sitting target. At least in the city, we have options, allies, resources." "We have resources here," Dominic countered, "and I'm not putting Lena on a yacht where she could be intercepted at sea." "Then what do you suggest?" Marcus asked, his tone carefully neutral. Dominic was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tapping against Lena's hip as he thought. Finally, "We go on the offensive, find out what Dragov really wants, and give it to him, on our terms, not his." "That's too risky," Marcus said immediately. "He's trying to draw you out, make you emotional. Don't give him what he wants." "What he wants is leverage." Dominic's eyes were cold, calculating. "He thinks Lena is my weakness. Let's show him exactly how wrong he is." Lena pulled away from Dominic's grip, turning to face him fully. "Don't use me as bait. That's not what I'm suggesting." "Isn't it?" She could feel anger rising, hot and righteous. "You want to go on the offensive using me as the catalyst. That makes me bait, Dominic." "It makes you protected," he corrected. "There's a difference." "Explain it to me." He looked at his security team. "Give us a minute." They filed out quickly, leaving Lena and Dominic alone in the sudden silence. He moved to the windows, staring out at the ocean with his hands clasped behind his back. A position she'd learned meant he was wrestling with something difficult. "Dragov has been a problem for years," he said finally. "He controls the eastern ports, has connections I've never been able to break. Every time I try to expand in that direction, he blocks me. We've maintained an uneasy truce, but it was always temporary." "What changed?" "You." He turned to face her. "The moment I married you, the balance shifted. Suddenly I had something he could target, a weakness he could exploit. He's probably been planning this since our wedding." "So this is my fault?" "No." Dominic closed the distance between them, his hands framing her face. "This is my fault for not anticipating it, for letting myself care about you without putting better protections in place first." "You can't protect me from everything," Lena said softly. "That's not how life works." "It's how my life works." His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. "I built this empire on control, Lena, on making sure I was always 3 steps ahead, always prepared for every contingency. But you're the one variable I can't control, the one thing I can't protect absolutely, and it's driving me insane." Lena covered his hands with hers. "Then let me help." Stop trying to shield me from everything and trust me to handle some of it. You want to help? His expression was unreadable. Fine. Tell me honestly. If something happened to you because of me, because of this life, could you live with that? Could you forgive me? The question hung between them, heavy with implications. Nothing's going to happen to me, Lena said. But if it did? She thought about it, really thought about it, about the life she'd left behind, struggling, scared, watching her father die by inches because they couldn't afford better care. About Maya, vulnerable and alone. About the constant fear that had been her companion for months before Dominic appeared. If something happened to me, she said slowly, it wouldn't be your fault. It would be the fault of whoever hurt me, and I'd expect you to destroy them for it. Something fierce and possessive flashed in Dominic's eyes. Count on it. But I'd also expect you to keep living, to not let it break you. She pressed her palm to his chest, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady. Promise me, if the worst happens, you don't go down with me. You survive. Don't ask me to promise that. I just did. He pulled her close, his face buried in her hair. You're asking me to imagine a world where you don't exist. I can't. I won't. Dominic, no, Lena. I've lost everyone I've ever loved. I'm not losing you too. He pulled back, his expression hardening into something ruthless and cold. Which is why we're leaving the island tonight, whether you like it or not. The security briefing reconvened an hour later. This time, Dominic's plan was clear and non-negotiable. They'd leave under cover of darkness on a smaller, faster boat. Marcus would captain it personally, with a full security detail. The yacht would sail simultaneously in a different direction, serving as a decoy. And if Dragov's people intercept the yacht, James asked, they'll find it empty except for crew who've been briefed and compensated for the risk. Dominic's tone was matter-of-fact. Any attack on them will give us legal justification to respond with overwhelming force. Lena listened to the plans being laid out, each detail meticulous and precise, and felt the island's paradise slipping away. She'd known this was temporary, known eventually they'd have to return to reality. But she'd hoped for more time, more mornings waking in Dominic's arms, more nights watching stars from the observatory, more moments where the world and its dangers felt very far away. Pack light, Dominic told her afterward. Only essentials. We leave at 2200 hours. That's military time, Lena said. You mean 10 o'clock? His mouth quirked. Yes, 10 o'clock. Are you making fun of me? A little. She wrapped her arms around his waist, needing the contact. Are you sure about this? Running back to the city? We're not running. We're repositioning. His hand stroked her hair. And yes, I'm sure. The city is my territory, my power base. If Dragov wants a war, I'll give him one. But on ground, I control. What if he doesn't want war? What if he just wants to scare you? Then he's succeeding, Dominic admitted quietly. Because I'm scared, Lena. For the first time in years, I'm genuinely afraid. Not for me, for you. And I need to be somewhere I can neutralize that fear with action. Lena understood. Dominic was a man who dealt with threats by eliminating them, with fear by turning it into fury. Sitting on the island waiting for Dragov to make a move went against every instinct he had. Okay, she said. We'll go back. We'll face this together. Together, he agreed, kissing the top of her head. I like the sound of that. The hours until departure crawled by. Lena packed mechanically, her mind elsewhere. She wandered the island one last time, memorizing the hidden beach where Dominic had first told her he loved her, the terrace where they'd danced under the stars, the bedroom where they'd finally stopped pretending this was anything less than real. She found Dominic in his study, burning papers in a metal trash can. What are those? She asked. Sensitive documents. Can't leave them behind. He glanced up, his expression softening when he saw her. Having second thoughts? No, just saying goodbye, I guess. We'll come back. He set aside the papers, pulling her into his arms. When this is over, when Dragov is handled, we'll come back. Stay a month, 2 months. However long you want. Promise? I promise. He kissed her softly. This place is ours, Lena. No one takes that from us. At precisely 10 o'clock, they gathered at a private dock on the far side of the island. The boat waiting for them was sleek and fast, built for speed rather than comfort. Marcus supervised the loading of their minimal luggage while the security team took positions. "Ready?" Dominic asked, helping Lena aboard. She looked back at the island, at the lights of the estate glowing against the dark jungle. "As I'll ever be." The engines roared to life, and they shot out into the open ocean, the island disappearing behind them with alarming speed. Lena stood at the railing, watching it vanish, and tried not to feel like she was leaving safety behind. Dominic joined her, his arm around her shoulders. "You okay?" "Just thinking." "About?" "How different everything is from a month ago." She leaned into him. "How different I am." "Regret it?" "Not even a little." They stood together as the boat cut through dark waters, heading toward an uncertain future. Behind them, the island faded to a memory. Ahead, the city waited, and with it, Viktor Dragov in whatever game he was playing. But Lena wasn't afraid. Not with Dominic's arm around her, not with his security team surrounding them, not with the absolute certainty that whatever came next, they'd face it together. The journey back to the mainland took 6 hours. Lena tried to sleep in the boat's small cabin, but anxiety kept her awake. She could hear Dominic on the phone, his voice low and intense as he coordinated with people in the city. Preparing, planning, always 3 steps ahead. Finally, she gave up on sleep and joined him on deck. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. In the distance, she could see the city skyline emerging from the haze. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Marcus said, appearing beside her. "I always forget how beautiful it is until I see it from the water." "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" Lena asked. "Going back?" "I think Mr. Vale is doing what he does best, taking control of a situation before it controls him." Marcus studied her with sharp eyes. "He loves you, you know, more than I've ever seen him love anything. That makes him dangerous." "To Dragov?" "To everyone, including himself." Marcus's expression was grave. A man with nothing to lose is predictable. A man protecting someone he loves? That man will burn the world down if he has to. You make Mr. Vale unpredictable, Mrs. Vale. In our business, that's both a strength and a liability. Before Lena could respond, Dominic called out, "Lena, come here." She joined him at the boat's controls, where he stood with a tablet showing a map of the city. "See this?" He pointed to a section of the waterfront. "That's Dragov's territory. Warehouses, shipping containers, front businesses for his smuggling operations." "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I need you to understand what we're dealing with." His finger traced along the docks. "He controls millions of dollars in illegal goods flowing through those ports. Drugs, weapons, contraband. That's his power base." "And yours?" "Real estate, legitimate investments, political connections." Dominic's smile was cold. "I'm what you might call a reformed criminal. I made my fortune through violence, but I've spent the last 5 years building something sustainable, something that can't be taken away by a rival with a gun." "Then why is Dragov a threat?" "Because he represents what I used to be: chaos, violence, short-term thinking." Dominic set down the tablet. "And because he's smart enough to know the one thing that can make me revert to that is threatening you." Understanding dawned. "He wants to drag you back into a war." "Exactly. If I respond with violence, I lose everything I've built. Political allies distance themselves. Legitimate business partners pull out. Authorities who've been willing to overlook my past suddenly take interest." His jaw tightened. "But if I don't respond, I look weak, and in my world, weakness is death." "So what do you do?" "I find a third option." He pulled her close. "I show Dragov that threatening you doesn't make me weak or violent. It makes me strategic, calculated, more dangerous than he ever imagined." The boat docked at a private marina an hour later. 3 armored SUVs waited, engines running, security personnel everywhere. Dominic hustled Lena into the middle vehicle, bracketed by guards, and they sped through early morning streets toward the penthouse. The city felt different now, more dangerous, more hostile. Lena found herself scanning every car they passed, every pedestrian on the sidewalk, wondering which ones belonged to Dragov. "Stop," Dominic said quietly, taking her hand. "You're safe. I've got you." "How can you be sure?" "Because right now you're surrounded by 12 of the best security operatives money can buy, driving in a vehicle that could survive a rocket attack, heading to a building with more security than most government installations. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Dragov's not getting to you, Lena. I'll die before I let that happen. That's not comforting. It should be. I'm very hard to kill. Despite everything, she laughed. Your confidence is terrifying. Good. That's the idea. The penthouse felt different too, less like home and more like a fortress. New security measures had been installed while they were gone, reinforced doors, additional cameras, panic buttons in every room. The staff had been vetted again. Background checks run. Loyalties confirmed. This is insane, Lena said, staring at the security panel that now controlled access to their floor. This is necessary. Dominic pulled her away from the windows, away from sight lines. Until Dragov makes his move, we assume every moment could be the one he acts. That means protocols, vigilance, no unnecessary risks. You're saying I'm a prisoner again. I'm saying you're protected. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. I know this isn't the life you wanted. I know it's suffocating and scary and probably makes you want to run screaming. But please, Lena, just trust me to keep you safe until this is over. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take care of herself, that she didn't need to be wrapped in cotton and locked away. But the fear in his eyes stopped her, real, genuine fear that had nothing to do with his own safety and everything to do with hers. Okay, she said quietly, but you have to promise me something in return. Anything. You don't shut me out. You tell me what's happening, include me in decisions that affect my life. I need to feel like a partner, Dominic, not just someone you're protecting. Deal. He kissed her softly. Now come on. You need to eat, and then you need to sleep. You've been awake for almost 24 hours. Lena let him lead her to the kitchen, where staff had prepared food despite the early hour. She picked at breakfast while Dominic took call after call, his expression growing grimmer with each conversation. Finally, he set down his phone with a heavy sigh. What? Lena asked. Dragov made contact, wants to meet. Ice flooded Lena's veins. When? Tonight. Neutral territory, minimal security on both sides. Dominic's laugh was bitter. He's calling it a negotiation, like we're civilized men instead of what we really are. Are you going to go? Do I have a choice? He ran his hand through his hair. If I refuse, it looks like I'm afraid. If I go, I'm walking into a potential trap. Either way, he's controlling the situation. Then take back control, Lena said. Change the terms. Dominic looked at her sharply. What do you mean? I don't know your world, but I know negotiation. My father taught me, never accept the first offer, never let the other side set all the parameters. She leaned forward, warming to the idea. What if you agreed to meet, but insisted on different conditions? Different location, different timeline, something that puts you on equal footing. That could work. Dominic pulled out his phone, his fingers flying over the screen. Marcus, get in here. The next hour was a flurry of planning. Messages went back and forth with Dragov's people, each side jockeying for advantage. Finally, terms were agreed upon. They'd meet tomorrow evening at a restaurant Dominic owned, limited security, private dining room. Why your restaurant? Lena asked. Because every inch of it is covered by cameras I control, and the staff is loyal to me. Dominic's smile was predatory. If Dragov tries anything, I'll have evidence. And if he's smart, he'll know that and behave himself. What does he want? That's what I'm going to find out. That night, Lena lay in bed beside Dominic, listening to him breathe in the darkness. Sleep eluded her, adrenaline and anxiety keeping her wired and awake. She kept thinking about Dragov, about the threat he represented, about how quickly paradise had transformed into danger. Can't sleep? Dominic's voice startled her. Too much on my mind. He rolled to face her, his hand finding hers under the covers. Want to talk about it? I keep thinking, what if this never ends? What if there's always going to be someone threatening us? Some new enemy? Some new crisis? Then we deal with them as they come. His voice was steady, certain. This life isn't perfect, Lena. It's dangerous and complicated and sometimes terrifying, but it's ours. And I'd rather face all of it with you than have a safe, boring life with anyone else. You're crazy, she whispered. Probably. He pulled her close, her back against his chest, his arms secure around her waist. I'm your kind of crazy. Now sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. She must have slept eventually because she woke to morning light and the smell of coffee. Dominic was already up, dressed in a suit that made him look dangerous and powerful. He looked up when she appeared, his expression softening. Morning. How'd you sleep? Better than I expected. She poured herself coffee, joining him at the table where he was reviewing documents. Is that for the meeting tonight? Background on Dragov, known associates, business interests, anything that might give me leverage. He pushed a folder toward her. You should read it too. Lena opened the folder, scanning the contents. Viktor Dragov was younger than she'd expected. Early 40s, handsome in a cold way, with a reputation for ruthlessness that made her skin crawl. The file listed his various operations, his connections to other criminal organizations, his history of violence against rivals. He's killed people, she said quietly. Yes. A lot of people. Yes. Dominic took the folder back. Which is why tonight, I'm going in prepared for anything. Marcus will be close, armed, ready to intervene if needed. You'll stay here with the rest of the security team. What if he tries something anyway? Then he learns why threatening my wife was the worst mistake of his life. Dominic's eyes were hard as diamonds. I've been playing nice for 5 years, building legitimacy, avoiding unnecessary conflict. But if Dragov forces my hand, I'll show him exactly what I'm capable of when someone I love is in danger. The casual mention of love still made Lena's heart skip. Just be careful. Don't do anything that puts you at risk. I'm always careful. He stood, dropping a kiss on her head. I have too much to come home to. The day passed in agonizing slowness. Dominic prepared, strategized, ran through scenarios with Marcus and the security team. Lena tried to distract herself with books and television, but nothing held her attention. She kept checking the clock, watching minutes tick toward evening. Finally, Dominic emerged from his study dressed for the meeting, dark suit, no tie, looking every inch the powerful man he was. He found Lena on the terrace and pulled her into his arms. I'll be back in 2 hours, he said. 3 at most. If I'm not back by midnight, Marcus has instructions. What instructions? To get you somewhere safe and call in every favor I have. He kissed her deeply. But it won't come to that. This is just Dragov posturing, trying to see if he can rattle me. I'll hear what he has to say, make it clear you're off limits, and come home. Promise? Promise. He released her reluctantly. Stay inside, stay alert, and trust the team. They'll keep you safe. Then he was gone, and Lena was left alone with her fear and the setting sun. The hours crawled by. Lena paced the penthouse, too anxious to sit still. The security team maintained their positions, professional and alert, but their presence couldn't ease the knot in her stomach. At 8 o'clock, her phone rang. Maya's name flashed on the screen. Hey, Lena answered, grateful for the distraction. How are you? I'm good. Just finished my last exam of the semester. Maya's voice was bright, happy. I thought I'd come visit you this weekend if you're free. I haven't seen the famous penthouse yet. Lena's heart sank. This weekend isn't great. Maybe in a couple weeks? Is everything okay? You sound weird. I'm fine, just tired. Lena? Maya's tone shifted, worried now. What's going on? Are you and Dominic fighting? No, nothing like that. Lena forced brightness into her voice. Everything's fine, I promise. I'm just busy right now. They talked for a few more minutes before Lena made an excuse to hang up. She hated lying to her sister, but what was she supposed to say? That she'd married into a world of violence, that there were people who wanted to hurt her, that she was locked in a penthouse while her husband negotiated with a criminal who'd killed dozens? At 9:30, Dominic's phone rang. Lena grabbed it, but it wasn't Dominic. It was Marcus, his voice tight with urgency. Mrs. Vale, we have a situation. Terror flooded through her. What happened? Is Dominic... Mr. Vale is fine, but Dragov didn't come alone to the meeting. He brought photos. Photos of what? Of you, and your sister, and her college campus. Marcus's voice was grim. He's making it clear that if Mr. Vale doesn't cooperate, both of you are targets. Lena's knees buckled. She sat down hard on the nearest chair. Maya? He's threatening Maya? Yes, Mr. Vale is negotiating now, but I need you to stay calm and stay inside. We're sending additional security to your sister's location right now. I need to call her. I need to... No. Any contact might alert Dragov's people that we're onto them. Let our team handle it. Marcus paused. Mrs. Vale, I need you to trust Mr. Vale. He's not going to let anything happen to either of you. The line went dead. Lena sat frozen, her mind reeling. This was her fault. She'd brought Maya into this by marrying Dominic, by becoming part of his world. And now her baby sister was in danger because of choices Lena had made. The next hour was endless. She tried calling Dominic, but it went to voicemail. Tried Marcus again. Same result. She was trapped in the penthouse with no information, no control, nothing but fear eating away at her insides. At 11 o'clock, the elevator chimed. Lena jumped to her feet as Dominic strode in, his face like thunder. He pulled her into his arms immediately, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. I'm sorry, he said into her hair. I'm so sorry. I should have anticipated this. What did he want? Dominic released her, pacing to the windows with barely controlled fury. He wants me to back off the eastern ports. Give him free rein to expand his operations without interference. In exchange, he'll leave you and Maya alone. And if you don't? His silence was answer enough. Lena's hands clenched into fists. So give it to him. I don't care about ports or territories. Just keep Maya safe. It's not that simple. Dominic turned to face her. If I capitulate now, I look weak. Every other rival I have will think they can threaten my family to get what they want. It would never end. Then what do? We fight. His eyes were cold, ruthless. We take Maya somewhere Dragov can't reach her. We fortify our position, and we prepare for war. Because that's what this is now, Lena. He made it war the moment he threatened your sister. Before Lena could respond, Dominic's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, and his entire body went rigid. When? He demanded. How many? A pause. Get her to the safe house. Now. He hung up, and the look on his face made Lena's blood run cold. What happened? Dragov's people tried to grab Maya from her dorm 20 minutes ago. Dominic's voice was deadly calm. Our team intercepted them. There was gunfire. Maya's safe, but she's terrified and demanding answers. The world tilted sideways. Lena grabbed the back of a chair for support. She's okay? She's fine. Shaken up, but fine. Dominic moved to her, his hands gripping her shoulders. But this changes everything. Dragov just proved he's willing to act, not just threaten. We need to move fast. Move where? Somewhere I should have taken us from the beginning. His expression hardened into something implacable and cold. Somewhere Dragov will never see coming. The elevator chimed again. This time, it wasn't security or staff. It was a stranger, tall, dark-haired, moving with lethal grace. He had a gun in his hand and death in his eyes, and Lena screamed as Dominic shoved her behind him, reaching for the weapon he kept in his desk. But they were too slow. Everything happened at once. The stranger raising his gun, Dominic pushing Lena toward the bedroom, security pouring from the stairwell. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the enclosed space. Lena felt Dominic's hand on her back, propelling her forward, and then sudden shocking pain as something grazed her shoulder. She stumbled, and Dominic caught her, his face gone white with rage and fear. Get her out, he roared at Marcus. Now! Strong hands grabbed Lena, pulling her away even as she fought to stay with Dominic. The last thing she saw before Marcus hustled her into the panic room was Dominic advancing on the stranger, fury incarnate, ready to kill with his bare hands if necessary. Then the reinforced door slammed shut, locking her in darkness and terror, and all she could do was pray that when it opened again, Dominic would still be alive. The panic room was designed to be impenetrable. Steel-reinforced walls, independent air supply, enough provisions to last weeks if necessary. But none of that mattered to Lena as she pressed against the door, her injured shoulder throbbing, listening to muffled sounds of violence from beyond. Mrs. Vale, please sit down. Marcus's voice was calm, professional, even as blood dripped from a cut on his temple. Let me look at that shoulder. I need to know if he's okay, Lena said, her voice breaking. I need to know Dominic's alive. He's alive, trust me. If something happened to Mr. Vale, we'd know. Marcus gently guided her to a chair, examining her shoulder with efficient movements. The bullet grazed you. It's going to hurt like hell, but you'll be fine. I need to clean and bandage it. Lena barely felt the sting of antiseptic, her entire focus on the door. The gunfire had stopped, but she didn't know if that was good or bad. Silence could mean Dominic was safe, or it could mean he was bleeding out on the floor of their home while she cowered behind a steel door. How did they get in? She asked, needing something to focus on besides her terror. You said the building was secure. Marcus's jaw tightened as he wrapped gauze around her shoulder. We're still determining that. Either they had inside help or they found a vulnerability we missed. Either way, heads are going to roll for this. What about Maya? You said she was safe. She's in a secure location with a full protection detail. No one's getting to her. He finished with the bandage, stepping back. But you need to prepare yourself, Mrs. Vale. When we leave this room, everything changes. Mr. Vale won't take chances with your safety anymore. Where you go, what you do, who you see, it'll all be controlled until Dragov is neutralized. I don't care about any of that. I just want Dominic alive. A heavy knock sounded on the door. 3 quick raps, pause, 2 more. Some kind of code, apparently, because Marcus immediately moved to open it. Dominic stood on the other side, blood spattered across his white shirt, his knuckles raw and bleeding. But he was alive, whole, and the relief that crashed through Lena nearly brought her to her knees. Lena! He was across the room in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms with a desperation that matched her own. You're hurt. I saw the blood. It's just a graze. I'm fine. She pulled back enough to see his face, her hands running over him, checking for injuries. Are you okay? What happened? The shooter's dead. Marcus's team took him down. Dominic's voice was hard, cold. But not before I got some information out of him. Something in his tone made her stomach drop. What kind of information? The kind that confirms this wasn't random. He released her, turning to Marcus. Get her packed. Essentials only. We leave in 30 minutes. Leave for where? Lena demanded. Somewhere Dragov will never think to look. Dominic's expression was grim. He escalated this, brought it into our home, put a bullet in you. That was a mistake. His last mistake. Dominic, what are you planning? To end this. He cupped her face, his touch gentle, despite the violence still humming through his frame. To make sure no one ever threatens you or Maya again. But first, I need to get you somewhere safe while I work. No. Lena stepped back, her own anger rising. No more hiding me away while you handle things. We're in this together, remember? You promised you wouldn't shut me out. That was before someone shot you in our home. His control cracked, fury and fear bleeding through. Before Dragov proved he'll stop at nothing to get to me through you, I can't. His voice broke. I can't lose you, Lena. I won't. Then don't shut me out. She moved closer, taking his bloody hands in hers. Whatever you're planning, whatever comes next, we face it together. That's what marriage means. Real marriage, not the contract we signed. Dominic looked at her for a long moment, emotions warring across his face. Finally, he nodded. Together. But you follow my lead, and if I tell you to run, you run. Agreed? Agreed. 30 minutes later, they were in an armored SUV racing through pre-dawn streets. Lena wore dark clothes Marcus had provided, her shoulder bandaged and throbbing. Dominic sat beside her. On the phone with what sounded like half the city, his voice clipped and commanding. Where are we going? She asked when he finally hung up. A property I own under a shell corporation. Not even Marcus knew about it until tonight. Dominic's hand found hers, squeezing gently. It's completely off the grid. No paper trail, no connection to my known assets. We'll be safe there while my people locate Dragov. And then what? Then I make him an offer he can't refuse. His smile was cold. One that ends with him backing off permanently or not breathing anymore. His choice. They drove for over an hour, leaving the city behind for industrial areas that gradually gave way to abandoned warehouses and shipping yards. Finally, the SUV pulled into what looked like a derelict factory, but inside, Lena discovered a surprisingly comfortable safe house, furnished, stocked, and clearly maintained despite its exterior appearance. This is where you bring people who need to disappear, she said, understanding dawning. Among other things, Dominic led her to a bedroom that was sparse but clean. Get some rest. You've been through hell tonight, and that shoulder needs time to heal. What about you? I have calls to make, plans to finalize. He kissed her forehead. I'll join you in a few hours. But Lena grabbed his wrist before he could leave. Tell me the truth. What did the shooter say before he died? Dominic's expression shuddered. Lena, the truth. You promised no more shutting me out. He sat on the edge of the bed, looking suddenly exhausted. He said Dragov has a source inside my organization. Someone close enough to know our security protocols, our safe houses, our movements. That's how they got into the penthouse. They had the codes. Ice flooded Lena's veins. Someone you trust is working for Dragov? Apparently, his hands clenched into fists, which means I can't trust anyone until we figure out who it is. That's why I brought you here, because if no one knows about this place, no one can betray its location. But what about Marcus? The security team? Marcus I trust with my life. The others, he shook his head. I'm running background checks on everyone, looking for anything that might indicate who flipped. But until then, we're isolated, just you, me, and Marcus. Lena processed this, the implications terrifying. If Dragov has someone inside your organization, he knows everything. Your businesses, your contacts, your weaknesses. Yes. Then how do you fight someone who knows all your moves? By making moves they don't expect. Dominic's smile was predatory. They know the legitimate businessman I've become. They don't know the man I used to be, the one who built his empire with blood and fury. That man didn't play by rules or worry about consequences. He just destroyed anyone who threatened what was his. You're going to war, Lena said quietly. I'm ending a war before it really starts. He stood, looking down at her with an expression that was equal parts love and lethal determination. Dragov thinks he can threaten my wife, my family, and walk away. He's about to learn differently. Sleep was impossible. Lena lay in the unfamiliar bed, her mind racing, her shoulder aching. Through the thin walls, she could hear Dominic's voice, sometimes calm and strategic, sometimes hard with barely controlled rage. He was calling in every favor, activating every asset, preparing for something that sounded increasingly like all-out war. She must have dozed eventually, because she woke to find him sliding into bed beside her, careful not to jostle her injured shoulder. His body was warm against hers, solid and real and alive. Did I wake you? He murmured. No, couldn't sleep anyway. She shifted to face him in the darkness. What time is it? Almost 6. The sun will be up soon. Any progress on finding the mole? Maybe. I have my tech people going through communications logs, financial records, anything that might show unusual activity. His hand stroked her hair, the gesture soothing. But it's going to take time we might not have. Dragov knows we're on to him now. He'll either move against us quickly, or he'll back off and regroup. Which do you think he'll do? Move against us. His ego won't let him back down after what happened tonight. Dominic's voice was grim. He sent someone into my home, into our bedroom. That's a declaration of intent. He won't stop until one of us is dead. Then what's the plan? I'm going to give him exactly what he wants, me, isolated and vulnerable, but on my terms, my location, my timeline. He pulled her closer, his breath warm against her forehead. I'm going to draw him out, Lena, and when he comes for me, I'm going to end this. You're using yourself as bait. Yes. That's insane. It's strategic. His lips brushed her temple. With you safe here and Maya protected, I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. I can take risks I couldn't take before. Except your life, Lena protested. Dominic, if something happens to you, it won't. I've been doing this since I was 19, remember? I know how to survive. He tilted her chin up, finding her lips in the darkness. The kiss was soft, sweet, heartbreaking in its tenderness. Trust me, Lena. I'm coming back to you. Promise? I promise. We didn't survive everything we've been through just to lose each other now. The next few days passed in strange limbo. Lena stayed in the safe house with Marcus, her shoulder slowly healing, while Dominic disappeared for hours at a time. He wouldn't tell her where he went, what he was doing, but she could see the tension building in him, coiled violence waiting for release. On the third day, Maya arrived. Lena heard the commotion outside and rushed to the main room to find her sister being escorted in by 2 security guards. Maya looked terrified, furious, and utterly bewildered all at once. Lena! She broke free from the guards and ran to her sister. What the hell is going on? Armed men showed up at my dorm. There was shooting, and then I was thrown in a car and driven to some safe house where no one would tell me anything except that you were in danger. I'm okay. I'm safe. Lena hugged her carefully, mindful of her shoulder. I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. Dragged into what? Maya pulled back, her eyes scanning Lena's face. And you're hurt. Your shoulder. What happened? Someone tried to hurt me. Dominic's people stopped them, but it got complicated. Lena guided her sister to a sofa. There are some things I haven't told you about my marriage, about Dominic's business. You mean that he's basically a crime boss? Maya's laugh was slightly hysterical. Yeah, I figured that out when men with guns started following me around campus. I may be young, Lena, but I'm not stupid. I never thought you were stupid. I wanted to protect you. Well, great job with that. Maya's anger cracked, revealing the fear underneath. I was so scared. I thought they were going to kill me, or worse. And then your husband's people showed up, and there was gunfire, and I didn't know if you were alive or dead, or... Her voice broke. Lena pulled her close again, letting her cry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought if I married Dominic, I could keep you safe, give you a chance at a normal life, but I made everything worse. Stop. Maya pulled back, wiping her eyes. Stop apologizing. You saved Dad's life. You saved me from having to drop out of school. You did what you had to do. She took a shaky breath. I just wish you trusted me with the truth instead of trying to handle everything alone. Old habits, Lena said weakly. Yeah, well, break them. Because I'm not a kid anymore, and I deserve to know when my sister's life is in danger. Maya's expression hardened. So tell me everything. Who's trying to hurt you, and what are we going to do about it? For the next hour, Lena explained everything. Drugov, the threats, the attack on the penthouse, Dominic's plan to draw their enemy out. Maya listened with growing horror, her face pale but determined. This is insane, she said when Lena finished. Your husband is planning to basically offer himself up as a sacrifice to protect you. He's not sacrificing himself. He's being strategic. He's being an idiot. Maya stood, pacing the small room. And you're letting him? Why aren't you stopping this? Because I don't know how else to end it, Lena admitted. Dragov won't stop until one of them is dead. At least this way, Dominic controls the circumstances. Or gets himself killed trying. Maya spun to face her. Lena, you love him. I can see it all over your face. Are you really okay with him risking his life like this? Of course I'm not okay with it. But what choice do I have? Lock him in this safe house? He's the only one who can end this. Then we need to make sure he doesn't go in alone. Maya's expression was fierce, reminding Lena suddenly of their mother, a woman who'd fought cancer with the same stubborn determination now radiating from her youngest daughter. We need to give him every advantage we can. Before Lena could respond, the door opened and Dominic walked in, stopping short when he saw Maya. You're here, he said, his surprise evident. I told Marcus to keep you at the other location. I insisted, Marcus said from behind him. She wanted to see her sister, and frankly, having them both in one place makes security easier. Maya stood, facing Dominic with her chin raised. I want to help. Absolutely not, Dominic said immediately. I'm already a target. Might as well be useful. Maya crossed her arms. I'm studying architecture, which means I understand spatial design, structural weaknesses, how buildings work. If you're planning some kind of confrontation, I can help you plan it. She's got a point, Marcus said quietly. Fresh eyes on the tactical situation couldn't hurt. Dominic looked at Lena, who shrugged. She's stubborn, like someone else I know. His laugh was surprised and genuine. Fine. But you stay in this building, you follow every security protocol, and the moment I tell you to evacuate, you don't argue. Clear? Crystal, Maya said. The next day transformed the safe house into a war room. Dominic's people brought in maps, schematics, surveillance footage. Maya threw herself into the planning with unexpected enthusiasm, pointing out sightlines and potential ambush points with the precision of someone who'd spent years studying how spaces worked. Here, she said, tapping a blueprint of an abandoned shipping terminal. If you're meeting Dragov here, he'll expect you to control the central warehouse. But these smaller structures on the perimeter, he won't pay as much attention to them. You could position backup there without him noticing. Dominic studied the plans, his expression thoughtful. That could work. Marcus, can we secure these buildings without tipping off surveillance? If we move at night, use minimal personnel, yeah. I can make it happen. Marcus made notes on his tablet. When's the meet? Tomorrow night. I sent word to Dragov this morning. Just me, minimal security, neutral ground to discuss terms. Dominic's smile was cold. He'll bring an army thinking I'm desperate and vulnerable. Instead, he'll walk into a trap. What if he doesn't take the bait? Lena asked. He will. His ego won't let him pass up a chance to humiliate me face to face. Dominic's hand found hers under the table. But just in case, I have backup plans. Contingencies for every scenario. The rest of the day was spent refining details, running through scenarios, preparing for every possible outcome. Lena watched Dominic transform from the man who'd held her tenderly on the island to something harder, colder, the ruthless crime boss who'd built an empire on calculated violence. It should have scared her. Instead, it made her realize just how much he'd softened for her, how much of himself he'd hidden to seem less dangerous. This was Dominic Vale in his element, strategic, ruthless, absolutely in control. That night, lying in bed with him, Lena traced patterns across his chest. You're different when you're planning, more focused. This is who I used to be all the time, he admitted, before I decided to go legitimate, before I met you. Do you miss it? The danger? The adrenaline? Sometimes, but what I have with you is worth more than any rush from violence. He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. After tomorrow, this is over. Dragov backs down or dies, and either way, we get our life back. What if something goes wrong? It won't. Dominic, Lena. He rolled to face her, his expression serious. I need you to understand something. Tomorrow, no matter what happens, you stay in this building. If things go sideways, Marcus will evacuate you and Maya to a secondary location. You don't try to help, don't try to find me, you just run. Promise me. I can't promise that. You have to. His hands framed her face. Because if I'm worried about you, if I'm thinking about whether you're safe instead of focusing on Dragov, I'll make mistakes. And mistakes get people killed. Lena wanted to argue, but she could see the fear beneath his determination. Okay, I promise. But you promised me something too. You come back. No heroic sacrifices, no unnecessary risks. You end this and come home to me. Deal. He kissed her, and she tasted desperation in it, fear and love and determination all mixed together. I love you, Lena Hart. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember that. I love you too, she whispered against his lips. Now show me. They made love with an urgency born of uncertainty, holding each other like the world might end tomorrow. And when it was over, when they lay tangled together in the darkness, Lena memorized the feel of him, the weight of his arm across her waist, the rhythm of his breathing, the warmth of his skin against hers, just in case tomorrow everything changed. The next day crawled by. Dominic was gone before Lena woke, leaving only a note. Trust me. I'll see you tonight. I love you. Maya found Lena staring at the note, her hands trembling. He's going to be okay, her sister said firmly. He's too stubborn to die. People die all the time, regardless of how stubborn they are. Not people like Dominic Vale. Maya sat beside her on the bed. Lena, I've watched him plan this operation. He's thought of everything, prepared for every contingency. He's not walking in there blind. That doesn't make me less terrified. I know. Maya took her hand. But you have to trust him. He's doing this for you, for us. The least we can do is believe he'll succeed. The hours dragged. Marcus kept them updated. Dominic was in position, Dragov had confirmed the meeting, everything was proceeding according to plan. But Lena couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that they'd missed something crucial. At 8 o'clock that evening, Marcus's radio crackled to life. We have movement, a voice said. Dragov's convoy just arrived. 6 vehicles, estimate 30 men. Copy that, Marcus responded. Mr. Vale, you're a go. Lena's hands clenched into fists. Somewhere across the city, Dominic was walking into a warehouse to face a man who'd tried to kill her, who'd threatened Maya, who had every reason to want him dead, and all she could do was wait. At 8:30, gunfire erupted over the radio. Contact! Contact! We're taking fire from... The transmission cut off in static. Marcus swore, grabbing for his phone. All teams, Report status. I repeat, all teams report. More static. Then a voice, distorted by interference. It's a trap. They knew we were... Cut off again. Terror locked around Lena's heart. What's happening? I don't know. Communications are being jammed. Marcus was already moving, grabbing weapons from a locked cabinet. Mrs. Vale, Miss Hart, you need to evacuate now. Use the tunnel in the basement, follow it to the street, and my secondary team will be waiting. What about Dominic? Lena demanded. I'm going to find him, but you need to go. Now! I'm not leaving without knowing he's safe. Lena, Maya grabbed her arm. We have to go. We're just making this harder for everyone by staying. More gunfire over the radio, closer this time. The lights in the safe house flickered. They're cutting power, Marcus said grimly. They found us. Move! He practically dragged them toward the basement stairs. They were halfway down when an explosion rocked the building, throwing them all to the concrete. Lena's ears rang, her vision swimming. She could taste blood, could smell smoke and cordite. Go! Marcus shoved them toward the tunnel entrance. I'll hold them off! Maya pulled Lena forward, into darkness lit only by emergency lights. Behind them, gunfire erupted, Marcus making his stand. Ahead, the tunnel stretched into unknown distance, their only hope of escape. They ran. The tunnel was narrow, claustrophobic, seemingly endless. Lena's shoulder screamed in protest, her lungs burning, but Maya's hand in hers kept her moving. They had to reach the other end, had to get to safety, had to... The tunnel ended in a ladder leading up. Maya climbed first, shoving open a heavy grate that led to an alley. She hauled Lena up after her, and they emerged into chaos. The alley was empty, but Lena could hear sirens in the distance, could see the glow of fire from the direction of the safe house. No secondary team waited for them. They were alone. We need to move, us, Maya said, her voice shaking but determined. Find somewhere public, somewhere safe. They stumbled out of the alley onto a main street, just two more scared women in a city that barely noticed them. Lena's mind raced. Where was Dominic? Was he alive? Had Dragov's trap succeeded? Her phone buzzed. With shaking hands, she pulled it out. A text from an unknown number. Your husband made a mistake. Come to Pier 47 alone if you want to see him alive. You have 1 hour. No, Maya breathed, reading over her shoulder. It's a trap. They want you too. I know. Lena stared at the message, her heart pounding. But what if they really have him? What if he's hurt and I'm his only chance? Then we call the police, the FBI, anyone who can help. We don't walk into Dragov's hands. Lena looked at her sister, so young, so brave, so desperate to protect her the way Lena had always protected Maya. And she knew what she had to do. You're right, she said calmly. We should call for help. Here, take my phone and call 911 while I... She ran. Behind her, Maya screamed her name, but Lena didn't stop. She ran through streets she barely recognized, following instinct and desperation toward the waterfront, toward Pier 47, toward whatever waited there, toward Dominic, if he was still alive, toward death, if he wasn't. But either way, toward the end of this nightmare. She reached the pier just as her hour was up. The area was deserted, industrial, lit only by scattered streetlights that created more shadows than illumination. In the distance, she could see a yacht moored at the dock, sleek, expensive, out of place in this rundown area. Lena walked toward it, her hands raised to show she was unarmed. She'd barely made it halfway down the pier when men emerged from the shadows, surrounding her with guns drawn. Mrs. Vale, one of them said, his accent thick. So good of you to join us. Mr. Dragov will be pleased. They grabbed her roughly, zip-tying her wrists behind her back. She didn't struggle, didn't fight. What would be the point? She'd walked into this willingly, trading herself for the slim chance that Dominic was alive and she could save him. They dragged her up the yacht's gangplank, through luxurious corridors that reminded her painfully of the island, of happier times. Finally, they shoved her into a large cabin where a man waited. Viktor Dragov was younger than his photos suggested, handsome in a cold way, dressed impeccably despite the late hour. He smiled when he saw her, but it didn't reach his eyes. Mrs. Vale, how lovely to finally meet you properly. He gestured to a chair. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Where's Dominic? Lena demanded, refusing to sit. Your message said, I said you'd see him alive. I never said when. Dragov's smile widened. But don't worry, your husband is very much breathing. For now, whether he stays that way depends entirely on you. What do you want? What I've always wanted. For Dominic Vale to understand that there are consequences to opposing me. Dragov circled her slowly, like a predator. He spent 5 years building his legitimate empire, thinking he could leave the old ways behind. But you can't escape what you are, Mrs. Vale. And your husband is, at his core, a violent man who understands only power. You're wrong about him. Am I? Tell me, when his sister died, what did he do? He slaughtered everyone involved, built an empire on their corpses. Dragov stopped in front of her. That's the man you married. Not the reformed businessman, but the killer. And tonight, I'm going to remind him exactly what he is. Before Lena could respond, a door opened and Dominic was shoved into the room. He was alive, but barely. Blood streaked his face from a cut above his eye. His shirt was torn and stained, his hands bound like hers. But his eyes were alert, furious, and full of love and fear when they landed on Lena. Let her go, he said, his voice rough. This is between us, Dragov. She has nothing to do with it. On the contrary, she has everything to do with it. Dragov gestured, and his men forced Dominic into a chair across from Lena. She's the reason you're weak. The reason you hesitate, make mistakes, let emotion cloud your judgment. And now, she's going to be the reason you give me exactly what I want. Which is? Dominic asked, though his eyes never left Lena's face. Everything. Your ports, your territory, your legitimate businesses, all of it transferred to my control. In exchange, I'll let you both live. Dragov pulled out a gun, checking it casually. Of course, you'll be ruined, powerless, forced to start over with nothing, but you'll be alive. Together. Isn't that worth any price? Lena's heart sank. This was it. The choice that would define everything. Give up everything Dominic had built or watch each other die. But before either of them could speak, an explosion rocked the yacht. The yacht lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. Dragov stumbled, his gun clattering across the polished floor. His men scrambled for stability, momentarily distracted, and in that split second of chaos, Dominic moved. Even with his hands bound, he was fast, faster than Lena had ever seen him move. He drove his shoulder into the nearest guard, sending the man crashing into a wall. Another guard raised his weapon, but Dominic was already spinning, his bound hands somehow finding the gun and wrenching it away. "Lena, down!" he shouted. She dropped to the floor as gunfire erupted. The cabin descended into mayhem, Dominic fighting 3 men at once, Dragov diving for his fallen weapon, the yacht tilting at a dangerous angle as another explosion rocked the hull. Through the chaos, Lena saw Marcus crash through the doorway, his tactical team pouring in behind him. The firefight intensified, deafening in the enclosed space. She crawled toward Dominic, trying to reach him, trying to help somehow. A hand grabbed her ankle, yanking her backward. Dragov loomed over her, his gun aimed at her face, his expression twisted with rage. "You stupid woman," he snarled. "Did you think you could—" The shot came from across the room. Dragov jerked, his eyes going wide with shock, and collapsed sideways. Behind him, Dominic stood with a smoking gun, his face spattered with blood that wasn't his own, his eyes wild and deadly. For a moment, everything froze. Then Marcus was shouting orders, his team securing the remaining guards, and Dominic was on his knees beside Lena, his bound hand somehow cutting through her zip ties with a knife he'd taken from somewhere. "Are you hurt?" His hands ran over her, checking for injuries even as his own blood dripped onto her clothes. "Lena, talk to me. Are you hurt?" "I'm okay. I'm okay." She threw her arms around his neck, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. "You're alive. I thought, when they took you." "Shh. I'm here. I've got you." He held her so tight she could barely breathe, his body shaking with adrenaline and relief. "You weren't supposed to come. You promised to stay safe." "He said he had you. What was I supposed to do?" "Trust that I had a plan." Dominic pulled back, his expression fierce. "Trust that I'd come back to you like I promised." "Sir." Marcus appeared beside them, already cutting through Dominic's restraints. "We need to move. This yacht is taking on water from the hull breach, and we've got local police inbound. 3 minutes? Maybe less?" Dominic hauled Lena to her feet, keeping her close as they navigated the tilting deck. The yacht was listing badly now, water pouring in through holes blown in the hull. Dragov's men who'd survived were already fleeing, jumping into the dark harbor water or being taken into custody by Marcus's team. They made it to the deck just as the yacht began its final slide beneath the surface. Marcus had a speedboat waiting, and they piled in, Dominic, Lena, Marcus, and 3 security personnel. The boat roared away from the sinking yacht, racing across the harbor toward a different pier where more vehicles waited. Lena looked back once and saw the yacht disappear beneath the water, taking with it Viktor Dragov and the threat he'd represented. The finality of it struck her. This was over. Really, truly over. "How did you know where I was?" she asked Dominic over the engine's roar. "Maya called Marcus the second you ran. She gave us your last known location, and we tracked your phone." Dominic's arm was locked around her waist, holding her against him like he'd never let go. "When we realized you were heading for the pier, I knew Dragov had you. Marcus and I were already extracting from the warehouse ambush. It was a setup. They knew about our backup teams, so we just redirected here." "The explosion?" "Marcus's people. Breached the hull to create chaos, give us an opening." He pressed his lips to her temple. "You scared 10 years off my life, you know that? Walking into Dragov's trap like that. You would have done the same for me." "That's different." "How?" "Because I can't live without you, and I can survive a lot of things, but losing you isn't one of them." His voice broke slightly. "Don't ever do that again. Promise me." "I promise. As long as you promise to stop putting yourself in situations where I have to choose between letting you die and running toward danger." Despite everything, he laughed. "Deal." They reached the pier where a convoy of SUVs waited. Paramedics immediately descended on them. Dominic needed stitches for the cut above his eye. Lena's shoulder was rebandaged. Both of them were checked for injuries they didn't know they had. Through it all, they didn't let go of each other. Maya arrived in another vehicle, throwing herself at Lena with enough force to nearly knock her over. "You absolute idiot! What were you thinking? You could have been killed!" "I was thinking I couldn't let him die," Lena said into her sister's hair. "I'm sorry I scared you." "You should be. I had to coordinate with Marcus while simultaneously having a panic attack." Maya pulled back, tears streaming down her face. "Don't you ever do that to me again." "I won't. I promise." Marcus approached Dominic, his expression grave. "Sir, we have a problem. The police are going to want statements about tonight. The warehouse, the safe house, the yacht. There are too many bodies, too much evidence to sweep under the rug." "Then we don't sweep it." Dominic's voice was calm, controlled. "We give them Dragov, his operation, his crimes, everything we have on him. Pin tonight's violence on his organization attacking mine. Self-defense, protection of assets. They'll still investigate you, your businesses, your background. Let them." Dominic glanced at Lena, something shifting in his expression. "I'm done hiding who I was. Time to face it head on and prove I'm not that person anymore." The next few hours were a blur of police stations and lawyers and statements given under bright fluorescent lights. Lena told the truth, mostly, that Dragov had targeted her to get to her husband, that she'd been kidnapped and rescued, that Dominic's people had saved her life. She left out the parts about criminal empires and old rivalries, sticking to the script Marcus had provided. Dawn was breaking by the time they were released. Dominic's lawyer, an elegant woman named Catherine, who seemed utterly unfazed by middle-of-the-night police interviews, assured them the worst was over. "Dragov's death will be ruled self-defense," she said crisply. "His organization is in chaos without him, and several of his associates are already making deals with prosecutors. You should be clear within a week, 2 at most." "And my businesses?" Dominic asked. "Will survive scrutiny. You've been very careful the last 5 years to keep everything legitimate. They'll look, but they won't find anything actionable." Catherine smiled. "You might want to consider full transparency going forward, though. Clean slate, fresh start. It would eliminate future vulnerability." "I'll consider it." Dominic shook her hand. "Thank you, Catherine." She left, and they were finally alone. Dominic, Lena, Maya, and Marcus in a private room at the police station. "What now?" Maya asked, voicing the question on everyone's mind. "Now we go home," Dominic said. "The real home. The penthouse has been swept and secured, new protocols in place. Or," he looked at Lena, "we could go somewhere else if you'd prefer. Somewhere without the memories of tonight. The penthouse is fine, Lena said firmly. We're not letting Dragov take our home from us. We take it back, make it ours again. Dominic's smile was tired but genuine. Then that's what we'll do. They returned to the penthouse as the sun climbed higher, painting the city in shades of gold and pink. The building did look different now. More security, different faces among the staff, subtle changes that spoke of lessons learned the hard way. But it was still their home. Maya stayed with them for the next few days, too shaken to return to campus immediately. She and Lena spent hours talking, really talking, about everything that had happened, about Dominic's world, about the choices Lena had made, about what the future might hold. Are you happy? Maya asked one afternoon as they sat on the terrace, watching the city sprawl below them. Lena thought about it. Yes, scared sometimes, overwhelmed often, but yes, happy. Even knowing what you know now, what this life costs? Even knowing. Lena looked at her sister. I love him, Maya. Not in spite of who he is, but including it. All of it. The dangerous parts and the gentle parts and everything in between. Then I'm happy for you. Maya squeezed her hand. Just promise you'll be careful, that you won't let this world consume you? I promise. And you promise to finish school, live your life, not worry about me every second? I'll try. Maya's smile was watery. But you're my big sister. Worrying about you is basically my job. A week later, Maya returned to campus with a security detail she'd grudgingly accepted. The police investigation was winding down. Dragov's organization had collapsed without him, and slowly, cautiously, life began returning to something resembling normal. Dominic threw himself into his businesses with renewed focus, but something had changed. He was more open now, more willing to delegate, to trust. The walls he'd built around himself for years were coming down, brick by careful brick. One evening, about 2 weeks after that terrible night on the yacht, Lena found him in his study with paperwork spread across his desk. What's all this? She asked. Legal documents. He gestured for her to come closer. I'm setting up a foundation. Something legitimate, something good, to help families dealing with medical debt, kids who can't afford college, people trapped in situations like your father was. Lena's throat tightened. Dominic, I spent years building an empire on violence and fear. I want to build something on hope instead. He pulled her into his lap, his arms wrapping around her waist. Something that honors what you gave up to save your family. Something that helps other people avoid having to make that choice. She couldn't find words big enough. That's beautiful. It's the least I can do. He kissed her neck. You made me want to be better, Lena. Made me believe I could be more than what I was. This is me trying to live up to that. She turned in his arms, framing his face with her hands. I love you, exactly as you are, not as some idealized version. You know that, right? I'm starting to. His smile was soft, vulnerable in a way that still took her breath away. But I want to be worthy of that love. Of you. You already are. They made love right there in his study, slow and sweet and perfect. And afterward, curled together in the chair that was definitely not designed for two people, Lena felt something settle in her chest, a certainty she'd been missing, a sense of home that had nothing to do with location and everything to do with the man holding her. A month after Dragov's death, Dominic took Lena back to the island. They arrived at sunset, the sky painted in impossible colors, the estate glowing golden in the fading light. It looked exactly as they'd left it, paradise unchanged, waiting patiently for their return. I promised we'd come back, Dominic said as they stood on the terrace where they danced under the stars. I keep my promises. So I've noticed. Lena leaned into him, breathing in the salt air and the scent of tropical flowers. How long can we stay? As long as you want. I've cleared my schedule for the next month. No calls, no meetings, no crisis management, just us. That sounds perfect. They spent the next 4 weeks rediscovering the island, swimming in hidden coves, watching sunsets from the observatory, making love in every room of the estate like they were reclaiming it from the shadows of that terrible night. Slowly, the tension that had lived in both of them since the attack began to ease. One night, lying in bed with moonlight streaming through the windows, Dominic asked, Do you ever regret it? Signing that contract? Marrying me? Lena propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face. Not even once. Do you? Never. His hand came up to cup her cheek. But I regret the terms. The coldness of it. The way I made you feel like a transaction instead of a choice. So let's change them. What do you mean? Lena sat up fully, suddenly filled with certainty about what she wanted. The contract we signed, it was about debt and obligation and saving my family. That's done now. Dad's healthy, Maya's safe, the debts are paid. So let's write a new contract, not about what we owe each other, but about what we choose. Dominic sat up too, his eyes intense on hers. What would this new contract say? That I choose you. Every day for the rest of my life, I choose you. Not because I have to, but because I want to. She took his hands in hers. That I love you, trust you, want to build a life with you that's ours. Really ours. Not something forced by circumstances. And what do I have to do to earn that? Just love me back? Choose me the same way. Promise we'll face whatever comes next together, as partners, not as a crime boss and his protected asset. I can do that. He pulled her close, his voice rough with emotion. I choose you, Lena Hart. Today, tomorrow, every day after. Not as my wife because of some contract, but as my partner because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Then we have a deal. She kissed him softly. Though maybe this time we should seal it with something other than signatures. What did you have in mind? She showed him. They left the island 2 weeks later, tanned and relaxed and more in love than seemed physically possible. But instead of returning to the penthouse, Dominic took her somewhere new. A house in the suburbs, modest by his standards, but beautiful, with a garden and a view of the water and neighbors who waved from their yards. I bought this last week, he said as they walked through the empty rooms. Thought maybe we could use a place that's just ours. No history, no memories of danger. Somewhere normal, where we can pretend we're just a regular couple for a while. Well, Lena turned to him, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. We'll never be a regular couple. No, but we can try. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. I want to give you everything, Lena. Not just protection or money or security. I want to give you peace, normalcy, the quiet life you would have had if you'd never met me. I don't want the life I would have had without you, she said firmly. I want this life, the complicated, dangerous, beautiful life we're building together. But I love the house. I love that you thought of it. So you'll help me furnish it, make it a home? I'd love to. They spent the next few months splitting their time between the penthouse and the suburban house, between Dominic's high-powered business world and quiet evenings cooking dinner together. Maya visited often, bringing friends who had no idea their host had once run a criminal empire. Lena reconnected with her father, bringing him to the house for weekly dinners that filled the rooms with laughter. The foundation Dominic had started grew faster than anyone expected. Within 6 months, they'd helped 24 families escape crushing medical debt and sent 15 kids to college who couldn't have afforded it otherwise. Lena threw herself into the work, discovering a passion for helping others that she'd thought she'd lost when she left nursing school. You're good at this, Dominic said one day, watching her review applications for assistance. Better than me. I understand what it's like to be desperate, Lena said, to feel like you're out of options. That empathy makes the difference. Then maybe you should run the foundation full-time. I'll handle the business side, you handle the people side. Are you offering me a job, Mr. Vale? I'm offering you a partnership, in every sense of the word. He pulled her close, his expression serious. What do you say? Want to change the world with me? I thought we were already doing that. Then let's do more. A year after their wedding, their first wedding, the cold contract ceremony they'd both approached with such different intentions, Dominic surprised Lena with a small box at breakfast. What's this? She asked, opening it to find a new ring. Delicate, beautiful, nothing like the simple band she'd worn for the past year. A promise, Dominic said, that I'll spend the rest of my life earning the gift you gave me when you signed that contract. That I'll be worthy of your trust, your love, your choice to stay. You already are worthy. But Lena slipped the ring on anyway, her eyes burning with happy tears. But I'll take the promise. And I'll make you one too. That I'll never regret choosing you. that I'll love you through whatever comes next, that we're in this together no matter what. No matter what, he echoed, and kissed her as the morning sun streamed through the windows of their suburban kitchen. 3 years later, Lena stood in the nursery of their house, holding their daughter while Dominic assembled a crib with more focus than he'd ever applied to business negotiations. "That piece doesn't go there," she said, trying not to laugh. "Yes, it does. The instructions clearly show—" He stopped, looked at the diagram again, and swore softly. "Okay, maybe it doesn't." "Want help? From the woman who once assembled an entire bookshelf upside down? I'll pass." But he was grinning, that rare, genuine smile that still made her heart skip. Their daughter, Elena, named for the sister Dominic had lost, made a small noise in her sleep. Lena looked down at her, at this tiny, perfect person they'd created, and felt overwhelmed by the sheer impossibility of her life. 4 years ago, she'd been a struggling nursing student watching her father die, convinced her future held nothing but loss and fear. Now she had a husband who loved her fiercely, a sister thriving in graduate school, a father in remission, and a daughter who would grow up knowing only safety and love. "What are you thinking?" Dominic asked, abandoning the crib to join her at the window. "That I'm happy. Ridiculously, impossibly happy." She leaned into him. "And that I'd sign that contract all over again, knowing where it would lead. Even the scary parts? Especially the scary parts. They brought us here." She looked up at him. "To this moment, this life, this family. It was worth every terrifying second." Dominic kissed the top of her head, then Elena's. "I used to think power was about control, about being strong enough, ruthless enough, to protect what was mine through fear. But you taught me something better. What's that? That real power is choosing to be vulnerable with the right person, letting them in, letting them see all of you, the violence and the gentleness, the past and the future, everything. That's strength." His arms tightened around them both. "You made me strong by making me soft, and I'll spend the rest of my life grateful for it." Maya's voice called from downstairs. "Lena, Dad's here, and he brought enough food for an army." "We're coming," Lena called back. To Dominic, she said, "Ready for family dinner chaos?" "With you, always." They went downstairs together, husband, wife, daughter, into a house filled with laughter and love and the beautiful, ordinary chaos of family. Outside, Marcus and his team maintained their discreet watch, because some precautions never went away entirely. But inside, in the warm glow of home, there was only peace. Later that night, after everyone had left and Elena was asleep in her bassinet, and Dominic was finally victorious over the crib assembly, they stood on their back porch watching stars appear in the darkening sky. "Do you ever miss it?" Lena asked. "The adrenaline, the danger, the power plays?" "Sometimes," Dominic admitted. "But then I come home to you, to our daughter, to this life we've built, and I realize I don't miss it enough to risk losing any of this." "Good answer." "I'm a quick learner." He pulled her close. "Besides, I have a different kind of power now. The power to help people instead of hurt them, to build instead of destroy, to love instead of fear. That's worth more than any empire. Look at you, being all wise and philosophical. Fatherhood does that to you, apparently." He kissed her temple. "Though I credit you with most of the wisdom. You've been teaching me how to be better since the day we met." "We've been teaching each other," Lena corrected. "You taught me I could be strong, that I deserved more than just surviving. We made each other better." "Then here's to making each other better for the next 50 years, Dominic said, raising an imaginary glass. 50 years minimum, Lena agreed, and kissed him as the first stars blazed to life overhead. The foundation continued to grow. By their 5th anniversary, they'd helped hundreds of families, funded dozens of scholarships, built partnerships with hospitals and universities across the country. Lena became the public face of it, giving speeches about second chances and the power of choosing hope over fear. Dominic stayed in the background, managing the business empire that funded their charitable work. He'd gone completely legitimate. His companies weathered investigations and audits without issue, his reputation slowly transforming from feared crime boss to respected philanthropist. Some people still whispered about his past, but he'd learned to live with that. "Let them whisper," he told Lena one night after a particularly vicious profile in a business magazine. I know who I am now, who we are. That's what matters. Maya graduated with honors and joined an architecture firm, designing affordable housing projects that the foundation helped fund. She met someone, a gentle, funny man named David who made her laugh and treated her like she was precious, and brought him to Sunday dinners where he fit seamlessly into their chaotic family. Lena's father lived to meet his granddaughter, to see his daughters thriving, to know that the sacrifices made years ago had led to something beautiful. When he passed peacefully 5 years after Elena was born, surrounded by family, Lena grieved but also felt grateful for the time they'd had. "He was proud of you," Dominic said at the funeral, holding her as she cried. "He told me once that signing that contract was the hardest thing he'd ever let you do, but also the best thing that ever happened to our family." He said that? He did. Said I better spend every day of my life being worthy of the daughter who saved him, or he'd haunt me. Dominic's smile was sad, but genuine. I promised him I would. I intend to keep that promise. On their 10th anniversary, they renewed their vows on the island, with Maya and David, with Marcus and his wife, with the staff who'd become family, with Elena running through the gardens in her flower girl dress. This time, the ceremony was nothing like the cold contract signing of a decade before. This time, Lena wore a dress she'd chosen herself, walked down an aisle of her own free will, and said vows she meant with every fiber of her being. "I choose you," she told Dominic as the sun set over the ocean. "Not because I have to, not because of debt or obligation or anything except love. I choose you today, tomorrow, and every day after. You are my partner, my home, my heart, and I will love you until the stars go dark." Dominic's voice was rough with emotion when he responded. "You saved me in every way a person can be saved, gave me a reason to be better, to choose hope over revenge, to build instead of destroy. I love you more than power, more than safety, more than life itself, and I will spend the rest of my days proving that love is real." They kissed as their family cheered, as the island that had witnessed both their worst and best moments glowed in the twilight, as the future stretched ahead bright and full of possibility. That night, lying in bed in the master suite where they'd first admitted their feelings, Lena traced the scar on Dominic's eyebrow, the one from that terrible night on the yacht. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" she asked. "If I'd refused the contract, if Dragov had won, if any of 1,000 moments had gone differently?" "All the time," Dominic admitted. "But then I remember that every choice, every risk, every terrifying moment led us here, to this bed, this island, this life, and I can't regret any of it. Not even the parts where people tried to kill us? Especially not those parts. They proved we'd fight for each other, die for each other if necessary. They tested us, and we came out stronger." He kissed her softly. "Though I could have done without you walking into Dragov's trap. That particular choice aged me considerably. You would have done the same." "Exactly. Which is how I know we're perfect for each other. Equally brave, equally stupid, equally willing to risk everything for the people we love." Lena laughed, the sound echoing through the room. "When you put it that way, it's almost romantic." "Almost?" He rolled her beneath him, his eyes glinting with mischief. "I think it's extremely romantic, epic even, the stuff of legends. You're ridiculous. You love it. I love you," she corrected. "The ridiculousness is just a bonus." "I'll take it." He kissed her again, and the conversation ended as better things began. Years passed. Elena grew into a bright, fearless girl who inherited her father's strategic mind and her mother's compassionate heart. They had a son, too, Michael, named for Lena's father, who was quieter but no less determined. The foundation expanded internationally. The businesses thrived. The family grew and changed and adapted as families do. Through it all, Dominic and Lena faced every challenge together. There were hard times, business setbacks, health scares, moments when the past tried to resurface. But they weathered them all. Because that's what they'd promised each other, that night on a sinking yacht, when everything could have been lost. They would face it together, choose each other, every day, build a life worth fighting for. And they did. On their 20th anniversary, Lena stood in the foundation's headquarters, a gleaming building in the heart of the city that bore both their names, and looked at the wall of photos documenting the lives they'd changed. Thousands of people helped because two strangers had signed a contract in desperation and somehow found love in the ashes. Not bad for a business arrangement, Dominic said, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. Not bad at all. Lena leaned back against him, marveling at how perfectly they still fit together after 2 decades. Think we've earned our happy ending yet? I think we earned it the day you chose to stay instead of run. Everything since then has been bonus. He turned her in his arms, his eyes still as intense as the day they'd met. But for the record, I don't want an ending, happy or otherwise. I want to keep going, keep building, keep loving you for as long as the universe allows. That works for me. Lena kissed him. 20 years of love and partnership and choice in that simple gesture. After all, we have a pretty good track record of making the impossible work. The best, Dominic agreed, and kissed her back as their empire of hope and love and second chances stretched around them, proof that sometimes the most desperate choices lead to the most beautiful destinations. That night, they returned to the suburban house where it had all really begun, where they'd learned to be partners instead of strangers, where they'd raised their children, where they'd built a normal life alongside the extraordinary one. The lights were on because Maya and David were babysitting the kids, and Lena could hear laughter floating from inside. Ready to face the chaos? Dominic asked. With you, always. They walked inside together, into the warm glow of home, into the beautiful, ordinary chaos of family, into a future that once had seemed impossible but now felt inevitable, because that's what love does. It transforms contracts into choices, strangers into soulmates, desperation into hope. It takes the broken pieces of 2 lives and builds something stronger than either could have created alone. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, it starts with rain hammering against windows and ends with stars blazing overhead, and everything in between is worth every terrifying, beautiful second. This was their story, Dominic and Lena Vale, the crime boss and the woman who saved him, the paper marriage that became legendary love. And it was far from over.